Like, subscribe, comment on the road to 1,000 subscribers. Yes, we are live and here in full effect. Yes, okay. Thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah, we want to start on time, but due to technical issues, that was an impossibility. It must be due to the subject matter. I tried putting up, full disclosure, I tried putting up promo on TikTok, and as soon as they heard the name, Andrew Tate, it seems that everything froze on TikTok. It seems that Andrew Tate has been banned on TikTok, quite simply. So if you want to advertise any sort of show that continues to carry his name, then you're in, well, I wouldn't say deep doo-doo, but you're not going to promote on their platform, which is utterly ridiculous, but there you go. But thank you very much for joining me on Talk Live on IJ, YouTube. Like, subscribe, comment. On the road to 1,000 subscribers. We are back, people, with part 2 of Andrew Tate in the USA. He is there. He is live. He is in Florida, and he is causing a lot of controversy. You'll find out in a minute what that is, because today it was newly found that the Attorney General in Florida are trying to trump up, pardon the pun, charges against Andrew Tate for anything and everything that they could find after seizing his software, after possessing much of his luggage. They want to find a crime. See the man, see the crime. See the man, find the crime, as they say these days, especially in the case of Andrew Tate. And quite simply, it is an absolute travesty of justice. Well, thank you very much for joining me here on Talk Live. What's up, Chanel? Good to see you. A long time, no chat. And we're back, ladies and gentlemen. We are back here. Sponsored by Dun Talk, DUNTLK.com, but probably not sponsored by Dun Talk because they are not exactly Andrew Tate fans. But again, we are here and we are live. We are going to go forward with this. So come along with me, won't you, into part 2 of the show that is indeed Andrew Tate in the USA, ladies and gentlemen. So we're going to get into it. We're going to get right back to where we started. Yesterday, we discussed Andrew Tate's unwanted welcome, unwelcome, introduction by Governor Mr. DeSantis there in Florida. They literally he literally said upon asking that Andrew Tate was entering Florida that we will find charges so that he does not stick around and stay, and/or he does not tend to have a lot more free time here in Florida. Yes, indeed, it has come to an age where you find the man, you find the crime, and that's what Andrew Tate is dealing with now. And in breaking news, the Attorney General has gone on record to say as such, and we'll be discussing that later on tonight on Talk Live if we have the time. If not, we're going to go to a part 3, ladies and gentlemen, because it is that important. It has caused that many waves. It has really possessed the zeitgeist out there for all to see. But let's get into it, ladies and gentlemen. Yesterday, as stated, Governor DeSantis wanted to lock up Andrew Tate. Number one. Number two, we discussed many of his TradCon colleagues who are literally jealous of the great man himself, Mr. Tate. The likes of Ben Shapiro, the likes of Bongnino, the likes of Republican Representative Josh Hawley, the likes of Megyn Kelly, all have gone on record to say that Andrew Tate is a menace, and they wish that they crawled back into the hole he came from, because quite simply they're sucking out. He's sucking all the air away from these TradCons who are uninteresting, to say the least. Andrew Tate's a phenomenon which has gone unabated, and people are hating on him, quite simply, especially the likes of Ben Shapiro, who was, and also Dave Portnoy of Barstool Incorporated, who have gone on record to say that they do not like the way he thinks, and he's literally sucking all the air out of the room, because he is indeed that much of a phenomenon and charismatic figure. But anyways, we're going to get into part 2 of this, where Andrew starts discussing, yes indeed, let me get over here, where Andrew starts discussing the charge of human, well, we've already gone to the charge of human trafficking. Well, let's get into his discussion regarding him being a Muslim. Now Andrew Tate was once a Christian when he was born in the States and he was living in the UK, but since leaving and spending some time in Dubai, but definitely in Romania, he's become a Muslim. So he goes into the reason why he's a Muslim and why he chose Muslim as a religion and what it means to him right now. So thank you very much for joining me in Talk Live. Let's get this a little bit bigger. Hold on. Let me just make sure that this is indeed going the right way. There we go. I missed it yesterday. Not doing it today. We're on the browser. Okay. You can see it here live on Talk Live on the YouTube. Yes, indeed. So let's go with it. Let's get on it. Let's get into it. Yes, indeed. I understand I'm being a Muslim. Thank you very much for joining me on Talk Live.
I lived in Germany at a refugee camp. And I saw who, first time I ever got stabbed in my life was by another Afghani kid. It was in Erlangen at a refugee camp. We had a fight. Boom. He took it out. Well, I'm like,
sounds about right.
Yeah, 11 years old when this happened to me. So you look at stats, because I'm a data guy. I think you're also a data guy.
100%.
And I watched you go through it to see how you were going to maneuver around this. I was watching you very closely. I think you and I even exchanged a couple messages one time.
Yeah.
Privately, you and I. I look at stats. 2023, the top name, the number one name in UK, London, is Mohammed.
Correct.
Okay. That wasn't the case when you grew up. That was not the case.
It's true.
When you look at stats, 27% of prisoners in London jail are Muslims.
Yep.
Where the population's only 6%.
That's right.
You hear the arguments about Sharia law, what they're saying. You hear your fellow who you've spoken to before, you guys have collaborated before, Tommy Robinson. He makes his arguments on what's going on with, what do you call it, with
Grooming
UK.
gangs.
Yeah. And then I look at some of the tweets. Here's a couple of the tweets that you had for people reacting to you because you were going strong to what was going on in UK. And you said, if you don't believe in the way the system that UK has, get out. I don't care who you are.
Correct.
You were very clear about it.
Correct.
You were very thorough about it.
Correct.
The response came back to you from the Muslim community, and it wasn't pretty. They were attacking you, right?
Yep.
And one of your response here that I have on the tweet, it says, Islam hate comes from Muslims who think they have to defend the disgusting actions that other Muslims commit instead of admitting that a religion can be perfect and people are not.
Yep.
Muslim must condemn the disgusting child rape openly and verbally, or the entire religion will be done. And then you respond back, Muslims who refuse to understand the crime Islamophobia instead of addressing the serious issue is only going to garner reassessment. These grooming gangs would not be tolerated in an Islamic country. It's time for Muslims to stand up against all. And then there's more of these that I can read.
Yep.
Okay. And even to go back on what happened when the comments they made about Jesus Christ, you remember that as a Muslim, you said, I will never forget these scumbags for disgracing Jesus Christ,
That's
right? So you've done both sides. But specifically to UK, a once great nation, based on what you're saying.
Yep.
A once 200 years ago, the strongest man, what they produced, who they defended.
Yep.
They were not afraid of going up against the scariest people that everybody feared. They stood up and said, you're not going to do it here.
Yep.
We've seen Dunkirk. We've seen these movies. We've seen these histories. A lot of us got it from movies. Some of us got it from school. How much has your opinion changed since now you've been a Muslim now for what, 2 years? I want to say 2 years, 2.5 years, something like that. How much do you link that to the issues that UK is facing?
So the UK does have a problem where a lot of the culture is being eroded, and it's being eroded by an Islamic immigration. And this is going to make Muslims mad when I say it, but I understand why the native Brits feel threatened by that and are unhappy with that. When you talk about crime statistics, it's difficult because you can do the same thing with black people in the United States, but black people are a part of the United States. It's seen as racist to say that there are a lower percentage of the population, but they commit more of the crime. But you can do the same with black people in the United States. But black people live here, and they're always going to live here. I like to be ultra realistic about all things. And I like the idea of Britain retaining its culture and feeling like England. A lot of the stabbing that happens in the UK isn't from Muslims particularly. It's actually from Christians from Africa. A lot of it's third worlders. A lot of it's black youths inside of London who do most of the stabbing, the majority of it. So I think we have a huge disconnect here that we have to discuss. And the disconnect is third world versus first world and attaching Islam to the third world. And in some cases that is true. But there are first world Islamic nations which are much safer than any Western nation. So you have a lot of third world Christians which are coming in, committing heinous crimes. The Southport killer, who was from Rwanda, I believe he's a Christian family, and he killed 4 or 5 little girls, stabbed them to death recently. That's what caused all the riots.
Rudy Kabena, the guy from the Taylor Swift concert.
Correct.
But his father was from Rwanda, but his father had some crazy stuff. He had a
Al-Qaeda
training.
manual, that's right. But there's a whole bunch of Christians who are people coming from the third world which are committing crimes as well. I'll be honest with you. It's actually interesting when we attach Islam to these things. If you go to the UAE or Qatar or Bahrain, these countries have extremely strict immigration policies. They're extremely strict about Islamization and extremism and radicalization. And these countries are some of the most beautiful countries in the world to live in, and they're extremely safe. So I think the problem that we have with Europe and the UK specifically was actually summed up by somebody who knows the problem better than I, and it was the UAE foreign minister. Did you ever see what he said?
Yes.
The UAE foreign minister. Find his video where he talks about the Islamization of Western nations. And he's saying that you're allowing extremism to foster in your countries because you think you know Islam better than we do. And we don't allow these ideologies in our own Islamic nations, and you're allowing them in the West. And you think you can...
It's right there.
Let's play this video.
Before we play this video, yes, indeed, I wanted to let that run a little longer so that, Andrew can get his point across. But quite simply, he's right. There a lot more... Well, I think the future of terrorism is in Western Europe. The future of terrorism is in Western Europe, especially in places like Germany, places like England, places like the Netherlands, where there are growing Muslim populations, and all are being radicalized with freedom. And again, it's not my religion, it's not my place to say, but again, as Andrew is saying there, in Muslim countries, these sort of grooming tactics are not tolerated. Sharia law is such that if you are found to being guilty of grooming for the act of terrorism, then you could lose your life through Sharia law. Now, I'm not an exact expert, but it is. It's very. But again, this is very much a possibility, simply because they do not tolerate their religion, Islam, being tarnished by bad behavior, by overt sins against the Quran, and it's something that that Muslim countries do not have to deal with because they have Sharia law. But in Europe, where there are more lenient sentences and there are more freedoms to assemble and to form terroristic groups through their religious connections, that is found to be more pervasive. So you're going to find the future of terrorism within not Muslim countries, but in European countries, especially Western European. But let's hear what the UAE foreign minister was saying about this.
There will come a day that we will see far more radical extremists and terrorists coming out of Europe because of lack of decision making, trying to be politically correct, or assuming that they know the Middle East and they know Islam and they know the others far better than we do. And I'm sorry, but that's pure ignorance. There will come a day.
What was interesting about that interview, if you saw the very beginning of the clip, the whole interview was actually in Arabic. And he was going to say that, and he goes, no, I'm actually going to say this in English.
Yeah, that's right.
And she's like, no, it's okay, we'll translate. He goes, no, I want to say this in English.
Yeah, so...
What do you think about that message?
Well, you could say he's not a real Muslim. I guess that's what the Muslims of Great Britain would do, because they said that to me when I said that any Muslim who is not outraged by the crimes committed by Muslims is part of the problem. And this is the identity politics problem, right? We had this with blacks and George Floyd, etc., and all these things, and BLM. If a black person commits crime, then black people should stand up and say, I don't care if he's black, he committed a crime. Yeah. But when you have people who rally around somebody purely because of their religion or the color of the skin, irregardless of their actions, that's how you foster hate. If you want to give racists what they want, and I'm part black, part white, if you want to make white people hate black people, all that takes is for black people to defend a black person who breaks the law. Now they're like, well, all you black people are a problem because this guy was a criminal and you're sticking up for him. So what I was saying is that the Muslims who complain that Islam is hated in the West, they're making it worse by sticking up for grooming gangs and serial murderers. I don't care what race or religion you are. If you're killing little girls, you're a scumbag. And in an Islamic nation, you would face the death penalty. So I don't care if it doesn't make me a real Muslim for that. I don't care.
Very good point raised there by Andrew. Yes, we're all... It's very hypocritical that, no matter what country you're in, be it the United States or be it in Europe or be it in the Middle East, that if you see a crime, that you basically condone it and basically not confess to it, not and defend these sort of crimes. So because of injustices that you feel are born against your the color of your skin, and crime is crime, people, and to be wrong is wrong, and for only a few races to bear that weight is ridiculous in and of itself. Once you see a crime, you must say you see a crime. This no snitching policy that is very much pervasive in the Western world, especially in the States. It's terrible. It's a terrible idea that only rots the community from within, and it allows for no sort of prosperity whatsoever, because nobody can trust your people, because you're only going to defend those who deserve to be blamed. And it is Andrew Tate is right. Crime is crime, and it needs to be identified. And if you see it, you need to say something and eradicate these things. And if not, go to such extremes as many Middle Eastern countries have done, which is employ Sharia law against these sort of terrorism, and leading to terroristic deaths if found guilty. Yes, indeed. Let's continue.
But I will be honest. I'll be very honest. What he said is extremely interesting. Because when I say these things online, I get no pushback and no hate from the Gulf Arabs. I get no pushback and no hate from the first world Muslims. None of that. It's only from the extremists. And the extremists are all living in Bradford. They're all living in the UK. It's really interesting that the most extreme points of view I get for the things I say about Islam are from England. It's never from the Islamic or the Arabic world. I saw another really interesting thing, actually. I'd like someone to find it. It was a post I saw on Twitter from a Pakistani guy.
Before he explains that, he's right. Andrew Tate is right. Most terrorists these days come from working class Western Europeans. That's where most terrorists from Muslim countries come from. Because if you had to go to Bahrain, if you had to go to a Qatar, if you have to go to United Arab Emirates, if you have to go to Saudi Arabia, no terrorists come from those areas, and the likes of Osama bin Laden are very, very rare indeed. And in first world Muslim countries, terrorism is unheard of, or terrorist cells are unheard of. They may be financed now. Now the problem is they may be financed from these countries, but they don't exactly find the terrorists themselves. They usually find them in Western Europe, which have lenient laws that allow them to, thrive and survive. Let's continue.
And he said, I'm from Pakistan. I live in Islamabad. And I was recently in Birmingham. And it felt more Islamic. And it was more backward thinking than anything you would see in Pakistan. He said, Islamabad is a far more liberal place to live than Birmingham, UK. He's saying the Pakistanis who are still in Islamabad are less Islamic and less extreme about things than those inside of Birmingham, UK. So you can have a conversation about all of these things. It's a long and detailed conversation. It'll get me in a lot of trouble. And as I'm only 2.5 years into Islam, I don't know all of the ins and outs. There's other people who know it better than me. What I will say is that I believe every country and every race, every identity has a right to their land. I believe that. I believe that the British people have a right to have an England for British people that feels like England. You can argue what a British person is. Perhaps the definition may be slightly changing, but you would argue that Great Britain has a Christian heritage, and I don't think there's anything wrong as a Muslim to say that Great Britain is a Christian country. It's always been a Christian country, and it should remain a Christian country. I believe that. I like that they let me visit. That's fine. I would never go to the UAE and say this should be a Christian nation. I would never do that. So why do we do it the other way around? It just seems hypocritical.
But that's the point, though. That's the point what a lot of people are making. If you want to live in a place that majority is Muslim, go there. You can move there. If you want to live in a place that's got the traditions, let them stay there, right? That's the whole argument about nationalism. Like, if you're proud of your country, no, you shouldn't be proud of your country.
But that only applies to white people. And I'm one of the champions of this, even though the hardcore racists on Twitter hate me because they call me mulatto and mixed race and all these things. I don't care. I'm going to champion for it anyway. Only white people are not allowed to love themselves, love their race, and love their countries. Everyone else is. White people are the only ones who could do it.
Mm-hmm.
If anyone else flies a flag or says we're from wherever, or we're this color, or we're this religion, we want it, it's fine. When white people do it, it's instantly demonized. White people are the only people who are expected to give up their lands. And it's actually quite, and I say this as a half white man, half black man, it's very obvious. It's very obvious for me to see. And the European countries, what's like, you could argue that America was founded multiracially. You could argue that. But the British people are a type of people. They're an ethnicity. They're a type of people from one place and one part of the earth. And once they lose it, they have nowhere else to go. That's all they have. And they're being replaced in real time. And their leader, Keir Starmer, is letting it happen. And if you talk about it, you go to jail. All of this is happening right now. And unless the men do something and replace him with somebody who cares, they're going to be replaced. That's the bottom line of it.
Now, again, Keir Starmer is a gooner, so again, I have a soft spot in my heart for him. But again, Andrew Tate is right. I mean, in the sense that Britain are not for the quote-unquote British anymore. It's tend to be more of an immigrant nation, such as the United States and most of Western Europe. And, you know, it's and he doesn't mind a little bit of nationalism when it comes to people and them immigrating to the U.S. There should be, and he asked for stricter, tougher laws when it comes to immigration. But you know, it's highly unlikely that that'll happen these days, simply because it's a change in immigration policy. You've already had an Indian prime minister. So the likelihood of that changing towards more of a nationalist view is few and far between. But as Andrew Tate said, is England indeed a fallen nation? Is the UK indeed a fallen nation? It remains to be seen, but Andrew Tate believes it is. Let's continue.
I can then argue, I can move on to the point that, you know, we all get what we deserve in this life and that the strong destroy the weak. We could argue that point. I could sit here and say, well, white people, if you get replaced, you deserve it because you didn't do anything about it. I could make that argument, but that doesn't mean it's not happening. White people are being replaced in their host nations. That's obvious for me to see. I don't think anyone can argue against that point. People try. People
That's
sit and
also
say,
a fair argument, though.
no, it's a very fair argument, but that upsets people. Or they deny it's happening. But it is happening. White people are going extinct.
Yep.
You are going extinct. And then when you tell people this, they have lots of different answers to it. But nationalism is feared when white people band together. And then, you know, you can argue, this actually ties back into something that's very interesting. The reason they fear nationalism when white people get banded together is because they apply it to World War II. They say, well, white nationalists do what Hitler did because he was a white nationalist. So they say that when white people get together and are nationalistic, it's like the Nazis. When other people get together and they're nationalistic, it's not. Is this actually true? Is this the largest psyop in history? I mean, World War II has had such a profound effect on our culture up until this point now. You know, World War II is the basis for all good and bad in the entire world. If I say to you, name the worst person in history, you'll probably say Hitler. You won't say Stalin, who killed more, because he was on our team.
Or Mao.
Or Mao, who killed more. Now, I'm not sitting here sticking up for Hitler. I'm just saying that World War II has shaped the modern world, and they use it as an emotional trigger to prevent white people from sticking up for themselves. Guess what I saw in the car on the way here? A terror attack in Germany. A car attack. You see it?
Yep, this morning.
A Muslim ran over a bunch of white people in Germany this morning. But the white people in Germany can't band together to fight against it because then they are what?
Racist.
Nazis.
Yep.
Nazis.
Yep, for sure.
So they use World War II. Let me ask you guys a question. If they use World War II to subvert white nationalism to the point of extinction, wouldn't it be truly treasonous if the story of World War II wasn't even true? What if there's another story to World War II? Is it true, the story that we know? The version of events that we know? Hitler's just crazy and he just lost his mind. I'm asking questions because in my world, I understood that victors write history. Winners write history. Winners are always the good guys. The loser was always the bad guy. Loser had no point of view at all. The winner had all the right thing and they were doing all the right things. So I'm just asking you, if this war is what's shaping the modern world and it is bringing on the ideology which is going to lead to the extinction of the white race, isn't it important we find out if the story we're told is even true? But let me apply this to modern time.
Well, before he gets into that, I mean, listen, he's such an eloquent guy, Andrew Tate, to be fair. And let's take this in. Let's take this in. It's Andrew is right that white nationalism is being outlawed, but again, white nationalism has had its. To the contrary, white nationalism has had its time on the big stage for 400 to 500 plus years. So to see a change in that, some would see it as unwelcome. Some would see it as welcome. But I see it as a sign of the times, and what will be at the end of the day. But it's it is true. You can't be white and nationalist in any Western state. And following up on that, there was another terrorist attack in Germany, in Western Europe, by a radicalized Muslim in a Western European country, that is Germany. And there again, we see that most of the terroristic ideals and terroristic attacks emanate from inside Europe by those who claim to have citizenship within those countries. So they're becoming more dangerous places, and that white nationalism can't be used as a way to defeat this terrorism, because you'd be considered racist, and with that racist accusation, then you can't take back your country, quite simply. And as a white nationalist, but again, as I've stated already, white people have already had center stage for the last 400 to 500 years, if not going on to 1,000 years. So it is it's a sign of the times, even though some people may be upset at that. And Trump is trying to do something about that with regards to his campaign this year. Last year with regards to the U.S. election. However, it is, it is slowly changing. The demographics of the United States, the demographics of Western Europe are slowly changing as well. And we're bearing witness to that. And so, you may like it, you may not like it, but changes are happening. Let's continue.
If you listen to the media and the story, they tell you Putin's crazy. Putin's nuts, and he's lost his mind, and he has no point of view at all, and he has no reason to invade Ukraine. There's no possible reason. If you research, you'll understand he actually has a pretty good argument. I'm not saying he's perfect. I'm saying that he has his beliefs. We have our beliefs, some right, some wrong. There's no such thing as black and white. There are different varying shades of gray in every single conflict. But the Hitler story, the World War II story, is black-white, because that's how the winners want to write it. And that's how it always goes when the war is over. And the story of Russia-Ukraine...
You mean the winners? Sorry. I have a little munch because I haven't had much to eat coming before the show. But the winners, as we know, we aren't going to say who they are, but we know who they are because they control the media. I'll leave that to you to decide. Let's continue.
Ukraine is black-white. Ukraine's innocent, we're innocent, Russia's nuts. But if you actually analyze things and understand them really, you'll see it's not that way. So this is a very interesting thought experiment. And that's what I'm doing before the media attacks me. I'm not advocating for anything. I'm not saying anything. This is a thought experiment. If one particular ideology is shaping society to the point where an entire race will go extinct, shouldn't we understand that period of history intimately? Yes or no? I would argue yes. And if that's the case, perhaps when we understand it better, perhaps white people might save themselves. Perhaps.
I got the question, Andrew. When you were talking about the UK, and we do so many stories that, and you even mentioned that it's fallen. When it comes to the was it the Pakistani rape gangs?
Yep.
The Pakistani rape gangs are doing their thing. In Germany, I remember we reported on this. A bunch of guys raped that 15-year-old girl in the park, and then the girl that went after the attacker on WhatsApp or Instagram, whatever, they went and they put her in jail. And then Keir Starmer and all these guys, it's as if this group is protected. They're covering it up, and they don't want it to come to light. Why would they hide the fact that these guys were Pakistani? Why are they putting in jail the girl that's going after the guy, the Muslim guy?
Sorry, guys.
That raped the girl and not the guy. Then they walk out of jail.
So this is the problem, right? What they're afraid of is they're afraid of racism and of nationalism and highlighting the problems amongst a certain demographic and subgroup because they feel like it's going to build resentment, and it will. Mm-hmm. So their solution, and it will build resentment, and I'm not saying that resentment's wrong. It's quite rightful resentment. So their solution is, let's try and hide the problem. But I would argue that one of the key elements, one of the key backbones to a multicultural society is at least fair treatment under the law. How can you expect all these different types of people to live together if they're not treated fairly under the law? How does Dubai survive? Dubai's 80% immigration from people from all around the world, all different colors. Why does everyone get along? Why does everyone go there? Fair treatment under the law. It's a harsh law, but we're all treated the same, right? So in the UK, now we have a double problem. You have the problem of the natural resentment for the results of actions of people who don't share British values, on top of a double standard in the law they're using to try and hide the issue. This is a time bomb. This is a time bomb. That's why they're doing it. Because they're scared of white nationalism, and they're scared of that because of the World War II story they've told. That's what they're scared of. White people are being replaced in real time. And you know, to lighten the mood a bit, my friend group is as diverse as possible, which means we have the best racist jokes ever. Because it's black guys, white guys, an Algerian guy. True friendship is racism, you know, and we're all, it is.
You're actually not wrong.
I have another kid, and they're like, yeah, you're black. And like, we all make fun of each other. It's fun, right? But it's also very interesting. There are key ideological differences that we're not allowed to address or talk about, which are extremely important for a society. Like the average white family, I would argue, has a different approach towards their financial stability and their emotional investment towards children than third worlders. I would argue that point. You can call me racist, you can attack me all you want. Third worlders will have kids and just have kids. They won't sit and go, can I afford this kid? Can I put this kid through private school? Do I have a college fund? Is it responsible to have a kid now? If you just grab third worlders from anywhere, doesn't matter if they're black, brown, white, wherever, if you get third worlders from anywhere, they just have kids. So when you let them into a country, you have to be prepared for them to have more children than the native population. It would be responsible for a leader of any nation to sit down and say, no matter how many of them we let in, they will outbreed the natives. This is a math calculation that should be done if you're a responsible leader for a country. Am I right? But they refuse it.
But remember, I'll stop it there. Sorry about that. Didn't eat all day, so just munching on some chips, so I apologize. The United States are doing that right now. They're doing that right now. Donald Trump is indeed engaging in some, in the Republican Party, to be fair, even though there are certain things that I like from Donald Trump, including his stance on the Alphabet Gang, and also with regards to the stopping of absolute hate against male channels, male upliftment channels, such as this one, such as Fresh and Fit, such as Andrew Tate himself. But one thing that Donald Trump did engage in is a bit of surreptitious, gerrymandering and rigging the election so that, well, I wouldn't say rigging, and enhancement of the election so that he does win the election, so that it can, and stopping immigration so that his country can stay, Anglo-Saxon for as long as possible. Now, again, some people could object to that. I somewhat object to that as well, but that is what he needed to do in order to turn the clock back on wokeness, turn the clock back on massive immigration, because as Andrew said, once an immigrant comes to a country, the first thing he wants to do is breed, because he wants to stay within that country, number one, and number two, it's part of his tradition. So that's exactly what Donald Trump is doing, is he putting a stop to immigration and really allowing his Caucasian background and his Caucasian brethren time to build up further nation, and he's engaging in nation building. To be fair, let's continue.
To do it, they refuse to even acknowledge it. So you let in 10% of third worlders, it's 10% for a while, but it's not for long. This is a decision you have to make. It's something you have to consider. It's something Europe refuses to even address. And they've let in a lot more than 10%, and more arrive every day. I think 1,200 people arrived yesterday on boats in England. I saw on Twitter. So it's nonstop. The only possible end result is the absolute replacement of the native population, which then begs the question, is a country a place on a map and a name, or is a country the people who live in it? Because I would argue that if you replace all the British people with people from somewhere else, it doesn't become Britain anymore. If you took all the Norwegians out of Norway and replaced them with Indians, would it be Norway?
Sure.
I don't think it would be.
No, that's the point. It changed. So, by the way, but Rob, pull up this chart that shows the net migration for UK from 2019 to 2022. Watch this. So, you see the orange color is non-EU coming in. The green color at the top is EU coming in.
Treason.
Watch this stat. You see the non-EU people coming in, flat, great. EU goes up, and then look what happens 2020, 2021, 2022, 2023. The amount of people coming in every year from non-EU. So they're letting anybody else come in. Now, have you ever seen Dominik Tarczynski from Poland?
Yes.
He is being interviewed, and he's being asked about why Poland has the lowest rape, lowest crime, lowest unemployment. And here's his answer, Rob. Can you play this clip?
Before we go there, on that clip, thank you very much for joining me on Talk Live on IG and YouTube. Like, subscribe, comment on the road to 1,000 subscribers. Doing this while eating, people. I understand. Do this while eating. Please excuse me. But, I'm getting a bit hungry here, and all I had to eat today was fruit. So, not exactly the best of things for me to have Doritos, but I was going through a fast as well. So, that takes care of that. But, Andrew Tate is exactly right. The UK is now more or less run by the Indian population, the South Asian population, because they allowed for huge amounts of immigration of Middle Easterners, I wouldn't say Middle Easterners, of Southeast Asian, Indian, and Pakistani population, to a point where now they are the largest minority, and it's going unabated, to a point where, indeed, white people are being phased out, as was seen by this graph here, by this chart. Let me go back to the full cam. I mean, that is an amazing... Oh, sorry. It's going back to the full cam. Let me go back to the browser. Let me go here, and let's see that again from that wonderful job there by Tate for pointing that out. And let me see here. Now, some would say that indeed it is the chickens coming home to roost, quite simply, because, again, of European imperialism as it made its way across the world pretty much for the last 300 to 400 years, and things have come back around, and the chickens have indeed come home to roost. But look at that chart. That is incredible what we see there, and that is from 2020 to 2023, 24, the amount of immigration, of that immigration from non-EU countries. It is staggering, the amount of immigration from non-EU countries, and a lot of them from Southeast Asia, and from the Middle East, and from Africa as well. They have a point to prove in that as well. So again, I think indeed, as Andrew Tate was saying, he is part black, he is part white, but he is all truth, in a sense that it's to see that the population decreased in Europe, well, not in Europe, but in the UK, and the population increase in the UK from non-EU countries is staggering. It is literally staggering, because, as you can see, from 1976 all the way to till the 2000s, where you see a lot more non-EU, and then things started leveling off in about 2012. But then and there would be more immigration from EU countries. But after 2020, it is staggering, the amount of non-EU based immigration coming into England, in which white people may indeed be replaced within the next 100 to 200 years. But again, it's and the same thing's happening in the United States, where the minority population will soon outnumber white population. But again, white people have had the stage for over 1,000 years, and especially in the United States for over 400 years. And this is time where the change wouldn't come back around, because, as Andrew pointed out, white people are very responsible when it comes to building nations and having children, where immigrant populations is all about just having childbirth and raising children despite the fact that you may not be able to afford to do so. Let's continue. It's a fascinating chart in of itself. But thank you for Valuetainment for sharing that with us. Let's continue. Fair use, fair use, fair use. Thank you very much for joining me on Talk Live.
'20, 2021, 2022, 2023, the amount of people coming in every year from non-EU, so they're letting anybody else come in. Now, have you ever seen Dominik Tarczynski from Poland?
Yes.
He is being interviewed and he's being asked about why Poland has the lowest rape, lowest crime, lowest unemployment, and here's his answer, Rob. Can you play this clip?
How many refugees has Poland taken?
Not one.
0.
And you're proud of that?
If you are asking me about Muslims illegal immigration, none, not even one will come to Poland. Not even one if it's illegal. We took over 2 million Ukrainians who are working, who are peaceful in Poland. We will not receive even one Muslim because this is what we promised.
But
Well, remember, a very good point raised there. But who is it? The foreign minister from Poland said himself he wants to preserve the Caucasian race within Poland. So therefore, they'll only immigrate those who reflect that reality, and that includes Ukrainians. Ukrainians are ethnically Caucasian, so he's only allowing for those to enter into illegally or legally through Ukraine. So they very much shun any sort of immigration from non-EU countries, from non-Caucasian countries. To be fair, and again, it's starting to happen here in the United States, and but not so much in most of Western Europe. Let's continue.
it's not about illegal immigrants. I asked about refugees. And Jean-Claude Juncker, the Commission President, says that you're racist. You sound proud of the fact that you haven't taken any refugees.
Of course, because this is what our people are expecting from our government. That's number one. This is why our government was elected. But this is why Poland is so safe. This is the reason why we had not even one terrorist attack. Look at the streets in Poland. And we can be called populists, nationalists, racists. I don't care. I care about my family and about my country.
Rob, you can pause it. Go for it.
Islam is not an excuse to break border laws. I don't know why some Muslims seem to believe it is. That's why Islam has such a terrible name. You can't say, I'm a Muslim, so let me in. I don't have to obey border laws. I don't think that Islam is an excuse to disobey the laws of a country. I don't think it's an excuse to disobey border laws, because it's not an excuse to disobey the border laws in Dubai or Qatar or Bahrain or all these other Islamic nations. You think you can rock up to the border of an Islamic nation and say, well, I'm Muslim, so just let me in, I ain't got a passport? I don't think so. I would argue that some of the strictest border controls ever are in that region, which is why they have such a problem trying to relocate refugees and these kind of things. So it's really insane that the white Christian liberal will argue that Muslim refugees have an instant pass to their Christian countries when they don't have an instant pass to Islamic countries. It doesn't matter.
Again, well said there by Andrew. It's Muslims, especially those from the West Bank, those from Gaza, those from Lebanon, they don't have an instant pass to first world Muslim countries. Go figure. They don't. They have to apply like everybody else, and they have to go in legally. There is no illegal immigration to said countries, it's the pot calling the kettle black for advocates of refugees to poo-poo the likes of Poland and Ukraine to disallow illegal immigration from Muslim countries. It's because they want to protect their nation. They want to protect what they have in terms of their ethnicity and in terms of their nationalism. But some people consider that racist. Yes, it can be considered racist to a certain extent, but again, it's preservation of a race that is indeed very possible. And and it's the same policy happens in the Middle East. The same policy happens in Asia, although now Asia is having many Asian countries, such as in North Korea, such as Japan, are having terrible birth rates, unfortunately. So they need more people to enter into the country to help build back its population. Now, they would still very much advocate for Asian countries to populate said areas, such as from Taiwan, such as from Vietnam, such as from Thailand, such as from Philippines, and the like. But they are coming to a point where they'll have to take in anyone just to keep it running. So again, it's not. I must say it's not racist to be it's not really racist to be a homogeneous country, to keep your country a certain color. I mean, you can visit it as long as in your visits racism doesn't visit you. That indeed is a problem to me. But for you to keep your country of a certain color, of a certain ethnicity, then it's only natural for that to happen. However, it is the hatred that is a conduit of that. That's where I have a problem. Let's continue.
What their religion is. Countries need a border. And my Islamic faith, I don't feel, counteracts my rationality in understanding that countries need a border. In fact, if you don't have a border, you don't even have a country. It's the prerequisite to a country. If you can't draw a border of that country, it doesn't exist. So Europe is currently imploding. And when I say imploding, I mean imploding in basically every single metric. Crime's going up, wages are going down, energy prices are through the moon, manufacturing's going down. It's imploding. Why is it imploding? Well, it's imploding because it's being run by psychopaths. It's either being run by psychopaths or extremely ignorant individuals who are intent on only finding money to send to Ukraine for a losing war on repeat and shutting up anyone who wants to tell the truth about the things that are happening there. And then you have this sectarianism. You have all of this gender ideology and this identity politics, which is tearing the fabric of society apart, because when a Muslim will do something disgusting and heinous, like be involved in a grooming gang, instead of being disavowed by other Muslims, all the other Muslims seem to start screaming about Islamophobia. And then you wonder why the average white Christian has a problem with Islam. I'm the absolute opposite. If I believe, yes, I am a Muslim, yes, but if you're in a grooming gang, I think you deserve the full punishment of the law. In fact, I would wish you to get caught in an Islamic country and see what actual punishment is. I think it's just disgusting. And I completely understand. Also, this is another thing about rationality that people lack, right? No one would describe me as empathetic, even though I would like to think I am, but nobody would describe me as empathetic. But I completely understand, as a white Christian in the UK, why you would feel threatened by Islam. I understand it. And when Muslims go, you don't have any reason to fear us. Well, he's in a grooming gang, you rape kids. Yo, you're racist. Like, how can you not understand the concerns of these people? And why aren't you doing anything to address those concerns? If you're a guest in someone's nation, shouldn't you try and address their concerns? Mm-hmm. You know, when BLM was big, I was having an argument with a member of my family. I have the black side of the family and the white side of my family. And I was arguing with one of my aunts. And BLM was going crazy and everything was burning down. She was saying that black people are not scared, they're not safe to get stopped by police. And she bought into the narrative fully. And I said, if that's the case, I would argue that holding large protests and burning things down is going to make it worse. Why don't you hold large rallies saying, we're Americans, we respect the law, we're citizens, and promote a culture of obedience to the law amongst Native African Americans? Wouldn't that fix the issue? I'm not saying that it's fair. She said, why should we have to do that? Life's not fair. I'm not saying you should have to do that. I'm saying, wouldn't it fix the issue if you promote obeying law enforcement as opposed to promoting burning everything down and disobeying law enforcement? Like, there's this...
Very, very good. I'm sorry. Look. If you ever had the reels before, you have the best chip in life. And I tell you what, when I start on a bag, I'm going to finish the whole thing. But what Andrew Tate had to say there is absolutely brilliant in the sense of, if Black Lives Matter, if such or any such movement were advocating peaceful citizenship, not being allowed to be who you want to be, do what you want to do without being persecuted, and upholding the law, I think they would get much more fans than those who participated in the movement, not to say that everyone did, but those who participated in said movement, burning down cities, burning down neighborhoods, their own neighborhoods, in fact, and simply because they want to rape and pillage and get a five-finger discount. And Andrew Tate is right in the sense that black people would have more fans outside the race if they did indeed uphold to, trying to live by the law, trying to be respectful citizens, and not wanting to be persecuted by the police or the judicial system. I think you'll get much more than that than you going down the street and being violent and being totally devoid of any sort of self-respect when it comes to leading a very upstanding life and respecting other people's property. Very, very well said. I mean, even if even if there may be a justified cause, the fact of the matter is, two wrongs don't make a right. And for black people and people of all races, to be fair, to go rioting in the streets in different neighborhoods, even your own neighborhood within large cities, I think that's wrong in and of itself. Let's continue.
The weird idea people have of why should I have to? That's not fair. Why should Muslims have to reassure? Why should black people have to do that? Yeah, there's lots of why should we? Why should I have to pay for a date? That's life. But don't we want problems? Don't we want solutions here? Or are we going to sit down and say, it doesn't matter about the solution. Let's let the problem get worse because we shouldn't have to try. I think that's the biggest problem with a lot of the things we have in the world today. I would argue that the Muslims inside of the UK, if they had respect for the country they were in, if they had respect for the native population and for Christianity, should be doing a pretty good job or should be trying to make it clear that they are not a threat. Instead, they walk around and try their very best to scare everyone all the time. And then they wonder why Islamophobia exists. And as a Muslim, I will say that because it's obvious. It's obvious. But when I say that, they turn on me and they attack me. But it doesn't matter what they say. It matters what God says.
Tate, just curious. You probably very qualified. Probably one of the few people in the world qualified to do this because it's not a big number. If you look at how many people in the U.S. convert, Rob, can you go say how many people convert from Christian to Muslim in America? It's not a big number. And if you look at how many women left, more women than men, I think the number is such a small...
Let's move forward a little bit on that because...
But when you have one side that's intent on fighting, we look at it in a relationship. You can have a man and a woman. The man can be the best man on earth. He can be the best speaker, the best relationship coach on the planet. If his woman's intent on fighting, she's gonna fight. So you need to have you need to look at each individual conflict and try and encourage people to seek peace. Unfortunately, this is an unfortunate reality of the world. Sometimes some people only want to seek peace when they have no other choice. And the only way you put them in that position is when you destroy them, which means you have to fight. It's unfortunate. It's very unfortunate. But I think if anyone can get it done, it's Donald Trump.
Well, you've been very complimentary of Trump. Trump, once he came into office,
guys, Trump's a hero. Trump has
again. Now this is again another backing another heralding of Donald Trump for his win and also for his the way he's handling things as president thus far. It's only about a month in. He's just over a month as being president of the United States. So again, not a long time, but he is making huge waves in terms of his policies. But again, Andrew Tate's a fan. Let's continue.
The Western world. I don't think enough people understand that if he didn't win, it would have been over for the Western world as we know it. Look at all the garbage we just talked about with my case. We talked about innocent until proven guilty being thrown out, democracy being thrown out, all this stuff. That would have been applying to everyone. All of us here would be in jail. Every man with half a backbone would be in jail. It would have been toast. There would have been a tranny in every single position of office for no reason. True. DEI everywhere. Once America fell, Europe's already fallen. It would have been over. Trump has saved the world as we know it. That is not an exaggeration. That is not hyperbole. Trump has saved the world. So the reason I am a fan of Trump is not because I agree with every single thing he does, not because I think he's a perfect person, but I can look and say he has saved the world. You know, it's actually amazing how bitter, petty, and stupid most people are. Elon Musk will put a rocket in space and then catch it. Incredible. And then someone will sit there and go, yeah, but he had a kid and he wasn't married. Can't you just let people be people and respect them for their monumental achievements and accept that nobody's infallible and nobody's perfect? These fucking Mr. Pastor in Nebraska is going to piss his pants about Elon Musk.
Church is going to be packed this weekend.
Yeah, he's going to piss his pants about Elon Musk. While Elon Musk furthers humanity. People are going to accuse Trump and piss their pants about Trump as he saves the Western world. There is a bigger picture. And anyone who is capable and smart enough of seeing the bigger picture isn't an enemy of mine. Because they look at me and go, you know what, Andrew may do some things we don't like. He may have said some things that aren't nice. But in the end, he is motivating the masculine youth to resist the slave mind programming of the Matrix. He is important in the battle against enslavement. The bigger picture is Tate is a net positive. But people are mean, and they are petty, and they are stupid, and they are jealous. And when you add all of that up, you will take somebody as monumentally achieved as myself, or people who have surpassed me in nearly every metric, Donald Trump and Elon Musk. Look at all of their monumental achievements, which literally span into the atmosphere, into the cosmos, and ignore that and say, oh, he didn't get a marriage certificate. You're a dipshit. You are a dipshit who cannot understand that no human is perfect. And we are all different. And we're all going to have disagreements. We probably all disagree on lots of issues. But we can shake hands and agree for the common good. When you have an army. When you have an army.
Stop there for a second. Wow. Probably the biggest, I think the best rant on this show. And God love Andrew Tate for doing it. Quite simply, I totally am in agreement with this. I may not agree with Donald Trump on many an issue, especially the tariff issue, and especially on the tariff issue and a few others. But one thing I do agree with him on is the fact that he is putting men first. For the first time in many a year, a world leader is putting men first. He was listening to men. His whole campaign was focused on men and their betterment in terms of the economy, in terms of their family. And it breaks with a huge tradition of, of the feminist / alphabet gang movement. He totally put a stop to that, and that is what's getting a lot of people butthurt. Now, again, I have nothing against the alphabet gang. I have nothing against women who want to push for themselves. But feminist now is a superiority movement. I will say that till the cows come home. So feminism is now a superiority movement. It was once about equality. Now it's about superiority. And as for the alphabet gang, their only agenda is to aggrandize their population within the within humans. And therefore, they have gone on record to say that they want to increase their size in terms of population. They've already said that. They are always and their agenda towards conversion of children towards said ideology and beliefs and sexuality has gone unabashed for the last 20 to 30 years. They've already said they want to, increase their population. They've said it wholeheartedly, and they're not going back on that. And many of the moves that was, and a lot of the things that was going to that were favoring them came from said administrations, not only in Western Europe, but definitely here in Canada and definitely in the States, where DEI and where the Alphabet Gang initiatives were indeed moving the needle towards the utter increase of soy boys and their derivatives and the like, to such an extent that it was becoming shocking. It was going to be gone were the days of real men, real free thinkers, real individuals who stood for real men who stood for something were going by the wayside. As I always say on this show, bad times make weak men, I mean, bad times make strong men make good times make weak men make bad times. And we are in that weak men, bad time space, especially now with the economy, especially now with a lot of, blue pill, soy boy, alphabet gang males out there. Nothing wrong with that. But at the end of the day, the age of strong, upstanding, heterosexual men was starting to fall by the wayside. So, but now, especially in the western part of the world, especially in Western Europe and in the Western world, but now with the age of Trump, with the election of Trump into office, those days are coming back. Thank goodness, those days are indeed coming back, and for that, I give him sincere thanks because. Remember when I talked to you about this show and I said about it yesterday, the diverting hate study that was brought forth by the U.S. Department of Inland Security. They were looking to outlaw male enhancement, male counseling, male favored platforms. They were looking to outlaw it. They're looking to get rid of it because they did not want strong men. They wanted weak, feeble. They thought male. They thought these male platforms were terroristic. They were indeed domestic terrorists, which makes absolutely no sense. But again, if Kamala Harris was ever elected, those things are going to go forward. They were going to go forward in force, only further suppressing male voices. And thank goodness the male population out there said, no, enough, time to turn a page and start bringing real men back. And so we have it today. So for that, I got to thank Donald Trump, to be fair. I do not like the way his policies on tariffs. I think they're quite silly and do not lead to more cooperation, but do lead to elimination, especially in this time of a bad economy. We need each other more than ever in order to get through these times. But in terms of helping men move forward, all the power to Donald Trump, and all the power, as a result, to the likes of Elon Musk and our focus tonight, that is Andrew Tate. Let's continue.
Of 10,000 men. They may disagree on so many different things, but the primary objective at the time is to raid the enemy trench. You have to be able to see the bigger picture. But most of these losers online with these opinions who've achieved very little in comparison, to myself, to you, to Elon, to Trump, they've achieved nearly nothing. They have an opinion on something you did, or something you said, or what you think 10 years ago, and they want to type it out, and they think it matters, and they get a little band of losers together, and they all argue about you, and we absorb all the organs.
That's that word again. So Trump has been very pro-Israel, and so he's been very pro-Bibi.
Correct.
And matter-of-factly, Tate. So do you think he's wrong on that, being so supportive of Israel?
You know, this whole Jewish question thing is actually an interesting one. I'm going to talk about this. This is going to get me more trouble. How much trouble am I in? Let me count it.
80%. The organs are coming for you, Tate.
Fucked. Right. T, we're going to jail. Pack a bag.
Just did.
Pack a bag. Right. So this, you know, it's actually...
And again, he's not wrong. He's not far wrong. Guess what's happening in Florida? I say it again. The Attorney General in Florida, we'll discuss it later on Talk Live. If not tomorrow night on Talk Live, we're going to be featuring Candace Owens' interview with Andrew Tate, and it featuring new charges that are being suggested by Governor Ron DeSantis and the Attorney General for things that Andrew Tate may or may not do. They've already seized his electronic devices. They've already seized his electronic devices. They've already seized his computer devices, only to see if they can find a crime to which they can lock him up for, because they don't want his voice out there. Again, the voice of feminism, the voice of soy boys everywhere are still loud, and they're still going on. And quite simply, they're trying to silence the one man who's louder than them still. Let's continue.
Kind of frustrating for me, because when I came out of jail, I did Piers Morgan, and I told appears that what was happening in Gaza was a massacre. And this was on like October 9th, like 2 days after.
You said genocide.
Genocide. I said it was unfair what was happening. This was before it became like widespread. This is only a couple days after. And I was told not to say that. That's going to get you in a lot of trouble. But that's what I believed, so I said it at the time. And there's a lot of people online who are fervently anti-Jew and are very anti-Semitic. And I know who these people are. And
including one of his friends who will only be identified as F and F. Let's continue.
You know these people are.
One of F. One F.
A lot of them. Sometimes,
West.
Yeah, well, so no, sometimes they have a point of view, and sometimes they just go way too far with it. So I think this whole argument is kind of two-pronged. The first prong is that there are people in the world who blame the Jews for absolutely everything, and that is pathetic. And these people think that they worked out the secret of the world, and they're based, and they blame Jewish people for everything. They're like, oh, but that's the Jews. What is? Race mixing is the Jews. Maybe they're attacking me for supporting race mixing. My dad is black, my mother is white. Why do you think the Israelis called me and told me to say this? It's my upbringing. Or they'll say, oh, but you can't get a girlfriend because the girls have all been subverted by the media. That's the Jews. How did the Jews keep you out the gym? Because your arms are skinny, bro. Like, how did the Jews stop you from being a man they want to fuck?
Not here. Definitely not here. Let's continue.
Explain that to me.
Not here.
They go so far with it. They go so far with it. And if you try and point this out, you're instantly a Mossad agent. Even I get this. After defending Palestine and risking my life, because they could have locked me back up and I was told not to, they're still not happy with me because I don't go far enough with blaming the rain on the Jews. It rained outside, you didn't have an umbrella, the Jews did it. So there's the psycho side of it. Mm-hmm. But as a rational person who likes to see both sides of the argument, I would also argue it is interesting that it seems the only influence over the American government that we're not scared about or we don't measure is the Israeli influence of the American government. It seems they do have some control over the American government. They do lobby heavily, and nobody talks about it in a negative way. Whereas if the Chinese do it or the Russian do it, there seems to be a big problem. It doesn't seem to be measured when Israel does it, and nobody seems to be concerned by it. Now, whether that's a good or bad thing, you can get someone on more qualified than me to discuss. There's people more qualified than me. I would argue as a rational, intelligent individual that the American government should be pertinently aware of all influences that are put on it. Shouldn't you measure them? I'm not saying even stop them, but shouldn't you know? Because, let me ask another question. This is a thought experiment. If you allow a nation to influence your nation, and you allow it to happen unchecked, who's influencing the influencer? I don't know this at all. This is off the top of my head. Who says Israel's not being influenced by China, Russia, whoever? What I'm saying is they can be a conduit if you allow it to be unchecked. So I understand that Israel seems to be the only country that can influence American politics without being checked. I understand that. I understand that's strange. I agree that should be measured. That's true. However, to argue that the Jews are the only reason why you're a little bitch hiding in your house at home, that's also bullshit. There's definitely a lot of irrationality on both sides. That's what I would say about that whole subject. And I think that...
I'd love to hear the debate between... You see my... orange thumb. Sorry about that, guys, but Doritos is the best chip on earth. I would love to see a debate between Andrew Tate and Myron Professor Fit on this subject, because Myron is not exactly a fan of he's not a fan of the religion, of the people, to be fair and frank. And Andrew Tate is more of a nuanced view on Jewish influence on the world. I tend to agree. I have indeed Jewish friends, and again, their influence on the world is quite vast. However, do I believe that they are indeed part of the evil of the world? Do I believe they're holding back men from being who they want to be? No, not necessarily not. And again, one has to see the forest for the trees and understand that even though they are highly influential, the Jewish religion and people are highly influential, and indeed some of their views are indeed a tad bit, how shall I say, controversial, to put it nicely. But indeed, it is a credit to Jewish people and faith that they have endured so much, and yet been able to persevere at the end, persevere for as long as they have. And yeah, we there is good and bad in everyone, and good and bad in every people. And to be fair, and it is to strike that balance, and see that for what it is, and understand that it's best to see the good in people than the bad. Then indeed, this world can become a better place, and a more understanding and analytical and peaceful place in which views can be exchanged to not hurt our world but help our world. Let's continue.
That people should be more rational and approach it rationally. But that subject seems to get people instantly into black and white camps. And those are the subjects that are hardest to discuss.
I love the breakdown.
Where there's no subjectivity.
That's the part of the breakdown. See, because in this breakdown, the way you just eloquently put together, guess who can be right? Both sides.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Because it's like, no, Trump did this, and that's he's owned. He's this. Maybe he's just being strategic.
Yeah.
No, but that side, they have control of everybody. Maybe they do have a little bit. No, they don't. Maybe they do. That's the subjectivity. The keyword you're using here is that we have to be able to do that more often. It was broken down so well the way you just did it right now. I don't mean to interrupt you. I just was really...
Thank you. But this is the interesting part, because there are certain subjects where it is instantly snapping to black and white camps.
Right.
And those are the problems that never get fixed. Those are the problems that never get fixed. There has to be subjectivity and discussion in all things. And both sides can have a point. And it has to be discussed at large. So it's actually, I would make this point, actually, for the people who are truly fearful of Israel and truly fearful of Jewish influence, you hinder yourselves by not being open to rational conversations, by not being invited on speaking podcasts, by not being open to ideas, because you don't accept that not every single thing on the planet is the Jews. If you want to be reasonable and responsible and have interesting and open conversations, you'll get a lot further. But when you put up this wall of every single thing is Jews, every single thing they've ever done, every single thing, you're just going to destroy destroy your own movement. Because when a half-black Muslim who defended Palestine, is being accused of being a Mossad agent, you may have gone too far. Perhaps. Guys, maybe you've gone a bit far. But, I guess it doesn't cross their minds. Because I promote race mixing, because my mother's white and my father's black, it looks like I work for the Jews. So,
wow, fantastic there from Andrew Tate. Yeah. Not everything is a Jewish problem, and you can't be hunkered down in your bunker, literally saying that Jews are evil. It's ludicrous. It's ludicrous for you to do that. And even in this Palestinian war, there are many Jews who hate the fact that they're at war in Palestine. They hate the fact that they're at war with people in the West Bank. They hate the fact that they're at war with Lebanon, and that they are supporting a pro-war leader like Benjamin Netanyahu. And it's we all have to see both sides of the equation. We all have to see both sides of things. We can't just be black and white, stay in one camp, and that being the end all and be all. We have to see both ends of each argument in order to grow ourselves, to make ourselves better, to make ourselves better thinkers, to make ourselves better analytical thinkers. And it is funny that how the world has become so polarized these days, and it's unnecessarily so. I think if we see each other's side of the argument, I think if we see where each other are coming from, I think the world can be indeed a better place. I think we can be put in a different light. Now, again, this doesn't stop the fact that polarized camps, racist camps, culturist camps, nationalist camps are the way they are. But we all have to see each other's perspective in order to move society forward. Let's continue.
What can you do?
Well, Tate, you're hired. Don't worry. I'll get you.
I was about to
get you a discount. I'm going to get you a 10% discount.
Get the yarmulke.
I got you.
Get the yarmulke
There is
in
no
right
discount.
now.
Buy one, get one. We'll bring Tristan in.
I was about to say, if I was hired, where's my fucking money?
Save that money, Tate. Save that money.
Because they ain't paid them yet. You know? But
We'll
it
get
is
you
what it
another
is.
Protect Philippe.
But you know,
With the diamonds.
it truly is interesting how many people cannot have a rational conversation ever. Because I am perfectly capable of arguing against every point I argue for. I'm perfectly capable of it.
So what you're supposed to do. That's,
Yeah,
that's
so
the
play
function
chess
of a
against
man who
yourself.
can reason should do that.
Absolutely. But these people are incapable of having rational, subjective conversations ever. And that is why we end up in the positions we end up in.
Great breakdown. We can move on from this topic.
And, ladies and gentlemen, to those who think that Andrew Tate is a silly, uneducated, polarizing individual who only hates women, has raped women, has held them beyond their will, and is the scourge of humanity, you are so dead wrong. And I think what sets you apart is the fact that you aren't willing to listen to Andrew Tate the way you have tonight. The way you have tonight. If you had a chance to listen to Andrew Tate, sit down and really, really listen to him, you'll understand that this man has a lot to say, a lot of rational things to say, and really is a man who can live in the gray rather than the black and the white. And for those who can live in the gray, those are the ones who are the special ones. Those are the ones who can lead society forward. Those are the ones who can move an argument forward, can move thought forward, can move society forward. And for those who, don't want to hear or see or understand who Andrew Tate really is, it's a shame, because I think he has a lot of things that people can't agree with. And I think people's ignorance blinds them, and that blindness is what, it is what paralyzes us all, and will not allow for society to evolve and change for the better. Let's continue.
We can talk about something. How about a light topic? We've been too heavy. Let's talk Epstein a little bit.
Speaking of Mossad,
I get more hate than Epstein does. You know this human trafficking crap?
Yeah.
They hate on me more with no convictions, not a single picture of a victim, not a single girl on the news saying I hurt her, zero. I get more hate than Epstein.
well,
Yes! Tell that to my nephew. My nephew still believes that this man is a human trafficker, when there's no evidence to that point. If he was a human trafficker, believe me, he'd find jail right now. If he was a human trafficker, someone would put a RICO charge on him, and he'd be in jail right now. They tried to do it in England. They tried to do it in Romania. They're going to try and do it in the States, because Lord knows that is DeSantis' mission, to lock him up, to succeed where others have failed. The only problem is DeSantis is not intelligent enough to find an iota, a scintilla of evidence against this man. And for that, they'll only go down the number of embarrassing faux pas that are on Ron DeSantis' copybook. Let's continue.
we've never heard this guy's voice. You're one of the leading voices in the world.
I wonder if it's because the people who were on his island own the media. Ever crossed your mind? Maybe it's interesting. Maybe the people who were on his list own the media, and they're like, no, we didn't do human trafficking. This guy did. Let me tell you, the only thing I've ever tried to do with a girl in my house is get her out. Please leave. Please, the taxi's outside. Yeah, tomorrow. I'll definitely see you tomorrow. 100%. I'm a bit busy. Maybe later. I promise. Please go home. Supposedly I'm kidnapping. Garbage. So the fact that my brother and I get more hate for human trafficking than Epstein shows how susceptible people are to matrix programming. Let me, before we move into Epstein, I want to make this very clear, because everyone at home watching this, you need to check yourself. Check yourself, do a self-diagnostic. If you can get a visceral emotional reaction to somebody you've never met because of something the media has said, you are a slave. You are a slave. If the media can sit down and tell you one side of a story and make you feel strongly and emotionally and angry against an individual you've never met and don't know the entire story of, you are slave-minded.
Ladies and gentlemen, you may have people in your own home who are of this ilk, that you love dearly, that you would die for. I have these people in my family as well, that are indeed slave-minded. They cannot think of Andrew Tate being anything else but a human trafficker, a man who made his money off the backs of women who were totally consensual, who were involved in his money-making scheme to their great effect. They still want to create him as being a villain, a pariah, a devil, a demon, a Svengali, and a man who takes advantage of women at all ends, means, and costs. I hope that these people see the light and really get the big picture of Andrew Tate, but I have to love them. Some up close, but some from a distance. And we agree to disagree. But it's a shame that they won't hear the other side of the argument before making a decision. They've only heard one side. They're unduly influenced by females within this family and around the world. And to that end, we must call them, well, I'm not going to call that to my family, but you know what I'm talking. The SBs of the world. And that's fine. You could be an SB. I can't even say the word. All right, I'll say it. Soy boys. You could be soy boys. I have soy boys in this house. But that's because they have had the best of upbringings, which is fine. But I see the forest for the trees, and I understand that there's another side to the story. A story in which Andrew Tate is telling, and men from around the world are listening to, and it isn't going to stop. Thank goodness it's not going to stop. It's going to bring strong men back into the equation. Let's continue.
My mind is so open. Let's talk about a subject that's going to be in more trouble. You said 80%?
80.
Before we go into this, let me get myself in more trouble. Will you write to me in jail?
I will.
Thank you, sir.
That's a verbal deal right there. Contract.
Put them back on.
Go. Right.
Go.
So I...
Well, your collar, fix your collar. You can't.
I can fucking do whatever the fuck I want. So
pop that collar, Tate. Pop your shirt off real quick.
I am so resistant to media programming that even when I know somebody is guilty of something, I still ask questions. So Diddy, is he guilty? Probably, yeah. I believe he's guilty. There's enough evidence around. He looks pretty guilty. But when the media is attacking him, I sit and think. I don't sit and think, Diddy's a piece of shit, Diddy's a piece of shit. I don't get programmed in the media. I sit and think, why only him? All of Hollywood's doing it. What did he do to get him in trouble? Because there's a whole bunch of others who've done the same things, but they're okay and he's not. Why did they randomly choose him? Did he stop obeying? Did he not re-sign the contract? Did he refuse to shut up about certain things? Why did they pluck him from the bunch of hundreds they could have gotten? That's what
You know why? And here's my assumption. My assumption. Here's my take on things. Here's my opinion on things. He wouldn't get there unless... Now, again, did he let himself into a lot of trouble by, him being just so arrogant and so flippant with regards to with regards to the way he behaves, especially with his ex Cassie, that led him down this rabbit hole, of which he is in a considerable amount of trouble. However, indeed, the powers that be selected Diddy as being the guy who would throw these parties, as being the guy who would take the fall if ever these truths became exposed. He knew that wholeheartedly, and as Andrew Tate suggests here, he signed that contract, and quite simply, he went about his business. Now, again, he could have governed himself a little better in terms of his behavior, especially with his girlfriends. I think if he did, I think things would continue on, and he would be fully protected. However, he left himself open to scrutiny. He left himself open to prosecution simply because of his behavior with that woman. She became the key witness, and here we are today with Diddy being in jail. Because again, most of these charges that are against him, a lot of them are consensual. If you take your mind and really parse things down, a lot of things he was participating in were consensual. The only problem was that certain people that were involved were doing certain illegal things, and with that came, there are certain charges against him, and so he has certain crimes against him. A lot of which there's a lot of evidence of him being, guilty of said crimes. However, if done appropriately and with the utmost of care and duty of care and not being so negligent, things could have been a different story. However, when dealing with those he was dealing with, that was going to be a problem. But I think with better behavior and careful attention, we wouldn't be hearing about Diddy in jail. He'd still be taking that. The baby oil would still be in the cabinet. The cameras will still be up. The guns would still be available, and the parties would still be going. Let's continue.
I think when the media attacks someone. So that's what a smart man thinks. When people see me on the news, Andrew Tate, and they say, okay, so he's had some girlfriends, and one girlfriend 10 years ago said he's a bad person, let's say. That applies to every man on earth. A slave will go, Andrew's a bad person. A smart man will go, why him? Why did they randomly choose this one guy when they could have chosen anyone? Why did they pick him? Well, let's look at the things he says. Oh, he talks against war. He talks against this. He talks against that. Oh, turns out he's an enemy of the slave mind and the programming. Maybe that's why. Intelligent people analyze why things are happening as opposed to feel emotionally invested in that event. So if you are watching something on the news, or if you have a strong opinion on someone you've never met, all these losers tweeting negatively at me who hate me so deeply because they saw a part of a YouTube video once and it offended them to their core, they can't stop tweeting against me. And Megyn Kelly thinks I'm bad, and she's never even spoken to me. All these people are slave-minded. Use your brain and think for yourself. Why did they choose me? Randomly, once I became famous, once I spoke against the Matrix, not while I had a webcam studio, not when those videos were made. No, I was fine. You do know that 20% of Romanian GDP comes from webcam studios. Do you know that? Look it up. Really? There's webcam studios all over Bucharest. They don't care. Why did they randomly choose me and attack me? Is it because...
I'll tell you why. Because he was awakening male minds. That's the one thing that the powers that be hate our awoken minds, because they are the seeds of rebellion. They did not want Andrew Tate to speak his mind and empower men. They did not want that. They wanted men docile. They wanted men asleep. They wanted men simps. They wanted them soy boys. But they did not want them awakened. They did not want them empowered. They wanted men to be trad cons, such as the Borginos and the ilk of the world, for lack of a better word. I can't even remember everybody else. But they did not want a Tate. They did not want a man who acted like a man, who was a throwback, quite simply. They did not want an Elon Musk, even though Elon Musk is there. They don't want a Donald Trump, even though Donald Trump is there. They wanted simps. They wanted simps. And Andrew Tate is not a simp. And for him to live a lifestyle that men want to live, and to awaken men's minds the way he does, they didn't want it. They simply put, did not want it. And so we are at a crossroads now where they're throwing everything but the kitchen sink at him. And in order to find something to stick, because they need to silence him. Ben Shapiro, that's his name. They did not want a Ben Shapiro. Well, they wanted a Ben Shapiro because, again, he spoke to a Jewish agenda. He's a bit of a trad con. Has all the elements of being, a guy that people can listen to, but they did not want that. They got a mixed race, highly intelligent, pugilist, who has suffered the bumps and bruises of life, has been prosecuted to the hilt, yet nothing can stick, and yet he still keeps on going. Telling his message of the Matrix and empowering men. They don't want that. They don't want his charisma. They don't want his chutzpah. They don't want his je ne sais quoi. Because I can tell you one thing. Andrew Tate's influence helped men believe in themselves, and I guarantee you, partly can be credited with the election of Donald Trump as President of the United States. Count me on that. Let's continue.
Because I'm guilty, or perhaps there may be an ulterior motive. If we're intelligent people, let's use our brains for a second. So when I see the Diddy things, as heinous as they are, I argue, generally part of the services sector, 5,000 women are employed in Romania's camming industry. Minimum. Those are the official ones. Those are the ones you hire. No, those are the ones that pay tax. And trust me, most of them don't. So I'm telling you, Romania's full of webcam. They don't care. They've never cared. Why me? So when I see the Diddy things, a slave is like, he's a disgusting piece of shit. He's a disgusting piece of shit. I sit there and go, wait. I don't know Diddy. Never spoken to him. I'm not defending him. Because what they're about to say is, Andrew Tate, sex trafficker, defend sex trafficker. No, what I'm saying is, they've decided to wreck him. I don't know his side of the story. He may be guilty. His side of the story might be, yeah, I did it, but so did this guy, this guy, this guy, and this guy. I'm only asking, why only him? Because I think that's a far more interesting story. Why him of all of them? Are we allowed to ask? Probably not. But I'm not slave-minded. They can't control me. Because let me ask you another question. You remember the video of him beating Cassie up in the hallway?
We all do, yes.
Okay.
Wait, in L.A.
When did that happen? 2011, like
11, 12?
It was forever.
Forever ago.
Yeah.
Forever ago.
It wasn't recent.
Here is, I wish to God this was on candid camera. When that video came out on Twitter, I said, T. He goes, what? I said, they're about to get Diddy. He goes, why? I said, they've just released a video that's 10 years old. They've been sitting on it for 10 years, and they've just put it on the news now.
2016, March of 2016.
Okay. So 9 years ago.
I said this to Tristan verbatim. I said, T, they're about to get Diddy. He said, why? I said, they've released a video that is 10 years old. They've been sitting on this for 10 long years. This was 2016 they got the footage. Why has no one seen it? And Tristan goes, and that's out now? I was like, yep. 2 weeks later, arrested. They set up the public perception before the arrest. And I know how this works, so I saw it and called it. This came out of nowhere. This was stored somewhere in the Matrix archives. When they decided to take him down, first thing you do is slander him, just like they did to me. Before we were arrested, there was a media campaign trying its very best to paint us as bad people because the media doesn't report the news. Gentlemen, please understand, the media prepares the public for the news. That's what they do. The media starts saying, you're going to die from COVID. Everyone's dying from COVID. COVID's scary. We might have to lock you in your house. We'll try not to, but we might have to. Prepare for maybe a lockdown. They soften your mind to the idea of things. They don't just come along and say, lock in your house, because people will rebel. They soften your mind to it. They softened people's brains to the idea of a Diddy arrest on purpose because it was all set up and decided. Just like they did to me because it is all set up, it is all orchestrated. That's why I do not believe what the media want me to believe. I'm not emotionally reacting to their stories because that's what they're intending. Instead, I'm analyzing, why did this appear now? Why has this been said now? Why are they putting it out today? What is their further intentions? Why him? Why not the others? Why this one clip of Andrew Tate saying something which could be interpreted badly? Why are we not talking about Andrew Tate's charity, TatePledge.com, where he gives $25 million a year away? Why are we not talking about the dog shelters he runs in Romania? Why are we only talking about an old joke he made 10 years ago? Why? Why? Nobody thinks why for any of this. And then they get played like a fool. And before you know it, they're being dragged down the path, thinking Andrew Tate's the worst man in the world with no criminal convictions. Before you know it, even senators, even governors of great states like Florida are not smart enough to stand up and answer a media question without falling for the trap, which makes them incompetent and unfit for leadership if they can't resist Matrix programming. Do you want a governor who could be tricked by the Matrix? Because I don't. Do you want an AG who's going to, instead of trying to solve the crime in Florida, find an innocent man and waste his time trying to put him in jail? Because I don't. But this is the world we're now living in. All because the Matrix can control people with a MSM, which should be completely defunct by now. Who's even watching this shit? Who even cares what they say? Who gives a shit? Who believes a single word from MSM? Who? Slaves. That's who.
Wonderful. You know, I let that play out. I let that play out for a reason, people. I let that play out for a reason. Let me go full cam. One of the few times on Talk Talk Live where I literally have to stop the show and go full cam. Let me tell you something. It's an old saying. It takes one to know one. It takes one to know one. Andrew Tate knew Diddy was going to go down simply because it's the wrap-up smear. As was alluded to earlier, the powers that be knew they had to take down Diddy. And they had the perfect way to do it. They already had evidence of him messing up. He went out and physically assaulted and beat Cassie. And that was from 2016. They should have tried him then if they really wanted to take him down. It took damn near 9 years to bring that to the forefront. 9 years. Not to say that Diddy is wrong in what he did, but it took 9 years to do it. Why? Because the powers that be needed Diddy to act a certain way for them, including having these parties for them. And when these parties are going out of style and they're tired of him having these parties, well, they're going to take him down. They're going to besmirch his reputation, besmirch all. They're going to smear all of his accomplishments and consider him a trafficker. But the man was handsomely played for most of his life, but they took it away. Why? Because the powers that be cannot see a man like Diddy not only survive, but thrive. A black man having that sort of wealth, that sort of power, that sort of ostentatiousness, a lot of people get jealous. And we need not say who. But, and so he served his purpose, and they realized that, okay, Diddy, it's your time to face the music, because that was the deal. You'll have your time of celebration, of success, of ostentatious living, and then we stop that. And I'm sure that he was aware of that too. But Andrew is the same thing. I mean, had to go through the same thing himself. He had to go through his time of ostentatiousness. He had to go through his time of success. He still can go through his time of success. But for him, he was a bit different in the sense of he was building a revolution, creating a movement. And in that movement came a lot of jealous eyes. Not only from within the movement, including the likes of Ben Shapiro, Bonino, Portnoy, but from outside the movement from feminists and from the Alphabet Gang. So they all wanted him taken down. But the smart thing that Andrew Tate did that Diddy didn't do is keep his nose virtually clean. Because if he didn't, Lord knows, that would be a problem. He'd be in jail right now. He wouldn't be rich to the extent where he could fight said charges. Not unless he kept his nose clean and he was financially and intelligent and astute. Believe me, if they're gonna try again here in Florida. They're already trying, and guess what? Chances are he'll get away with it too, because you have to be smarter than others. And I think he is. The one thing that separates him from Diddy is the fact that I think that Andrew Tate is thinking 3-4 steps ahead. He's exceedingly intelligent. He's exceedingly erudite. He's exceedingly futuristic in his outlook. He sees his understanding of chess has taught him about life and staying 2 or 3 steps ahead of the competition. And chances are he'll stay ahead of it here as well. Because not only is he intelligent, not only is he's physically strong, not only is he a pugilist himself, he can handle himself. He's been a world championship kickboxer. A champion kickboxer, I wouldn't say world champion, but champion kickboxer. But he's not lost his cleverness and wit and understanding of the game of chess. He's making moves better than Asimov is making moves right now, because he's keeping himself out of jail where a lot of people want to see him underneath it. Let's go back to the browser here. Thank you very much for joining me in Talk Live on IG and YouTube. This is wonderful footage here. Andrew Tate. I tell you what, man, I'm becoming a much bigger fan than people realize of this man here. He is extremely confident in his abilities, and so he should be. And so he should be. Let's continue.
So it's very important that you at home, if you want to resist the slave programming, defrag your own brain. Analyze yourself. Go look in the mirror and say, who do I hate? This person. Have I ever met them? No. Why do I hate them? The news told me. Wake up.
Andrew, so because it started on the Epstein list. So we were promised the Epstein list was going to come out. Trump said he's going to release it. Cash Patel said day one I was going to release it. Business working days, we're on day 6. I tweeted it today. And Andrew, you kind of mentioned it, because they're all involved. What type of who is the type of people or group that can literally make phone calls and say, "Don't you freaking dare put that shit out because we're all on it and we have footage on all of you and we're on it as well." Who? Because I know you're smirking because I know you kind of know, but who has that power, Andrew? Don't get in trouble. But who's up there, Andrew, that's calling them? Because, Andrew, they're calling, think about it. It's reaching Pam Bondi, it's reaching Cash Patel, and Donald Trump promised it to us, and we're still waiting. We're waiting, which I don't think it's ever going to come out. Who's up there? Who's up there? Who's making that call?
Well, I could say the Jews and get some favor. Get some favor with the internet. But, let's argue that there's a lot of influences in the world.
Yep.
And all of them are rich. Poor people don't matter in terms of this kind of political setup, right? So it can be the Jews, it can be the Muslims, it can be the Christians, whatever, but whoever they are, they have a lot of money because money is power. So I would analyze, firstly, if I had to try and dissect this as a professional, I would analyze who controls enough money that it would be a detriment to the political class and the society as a whole if these lists leaked. Because nobody's afraid of outing a poor person, and nobody's afraid of outing brokies. They're afraid of outing people with massive influence, and influence is money because money is the stored time and energy of other humans. So I would say follow the money. And if you follow the money, you will come to the answer to the question. Will they eventually release it? I like to think so. I'm actually a huge fan of Cash. I actually like Pam. I think they're good people. I've never spoken to them, but from what I've seen, they're great. So I like to think they will release it. I also am a benefit of the doubt guy in general. I think that if somebody says they're going to release a list and they're a little bit late, but they haven't said they're not going to release it, I think we should give them the benefit of the doubt because the other team would have never released it. The other team would have never promised to release it. If Kamala won, it would have never been seen. So perhaps there's a delay, maybe. I like to think perhaps it will come in the end. That would be good. But if you wanted to ask me who's stopping it coming out, it's people with money. That's what it is. Money makes the world go around. It's people with money. So if you follow the money, you're going to find it.
Both sides, by the way.
I
agree 100%.
It's common sense. Common sense. People with money are the ones stopping that list from coming out. Common sense. If you have enough power and influence, you're not going to let those names being revealed. Even the 47th president of the United States.
To do with people that...
Oh, this is money. Money makes the world go round, especially America. America's all, it's money.
Wasn't there news over the last week that he was literally an FBI informant?
FBI informant and a Mossad agent. So there was two of them. He worked for everybody.
You know what's interesting when you talk about money and how money affects everything? I was having a conversation. You know what? If I really wanted to go viral, my private conversations inside the war room at my house would be posted online, but they're not. But I was discussing with somebody, and we were talking about Trump ending BRICS. Trump came along and said, BRICS is enough, you're using the dollar. Instantly ended it. And a girl who was there said, well, why are people listening to Trump? Why don't people just do BRICS anyway so they can get off the dollar and they can move on? Which is quite a smart thing for a girl to say. She actually knew what BRICS was. I was impressed. So can you drive? Oh, didn't think so. So I said, because it's actually interesting. Money is the driving force behind all politics. It always will be because it is your primary objective to not only make people believe they can be rich, but to keep your rich people happy, to keep your oligarchy happy, and to keep them politically invested in you. The only countries in the world that can control their oligarchy are America, Russia, and China. Every other country, their rich political classes, their oligarchy, are more interested in staying rich than they are interested in the leadership of the country. So if they were to proceed with BRICS and try and completely detach from the American dollar, the massive repercussions of that would upset the oligarchy of these nations. Do you think the rich Venezuelans really give a shit about the Venezuelan president, or do you think they give a shit about their offshore accounts and their dollars and staying
their
rich?
money?
They want their money.
Yeah.
So the only way you can combat America and the American dollar is if you can control your oligarchy. China oligarchy is controlled because look what happened to Jack Ma when he talked bad about China. He vanished. Look what happens to Russian oligarchs when they do bad. They fly out of a fucking window. All of them. Every single one. The American oligarchs, well, they get a prison case usually. So we're the nicest of the three. But we can control our oligarchy. Most nations, if you want to understand politics in lots of countries, you need to analyze how many countries cannot control the wealth of their own nation. That's one of the reasons England's collapsing right now. There is a wealth flight. Everyone with money is leaving. And you know what's funny? They're leaving because of crime and Islam. And guess what they're leaving to? Dubai. All of them. So it's not an Islam problem. It's a crime problem. It's a unsafe streets. It's a government you can't trust. It's two-tier policing. That's what they're running from. But everyone is leaving these countries because the UK is not a strong enough government to keep its rich people in place. America has great control over its oligarchy. American billionaires stay in America. And Russian billionaires stay in Russia. And they'll listen. If Putin calls all the billionaires and says, we're not doing business with Ukraine, they'll listen. If not, they go flying out a window. That's why they're all flying out windows. A couple of them took the wrong phone call, took the wrong text message, shouldn't have done it. FSB turn up, they're built different. You ain't arguing your way out of that one. You're going out a fucking window. So it's really interesting when you analyze global politics. Who can actually control their oligarchy is how they can influence things overall. So you talk about the Epstein list. I would argue it's a very similar scenario. It's all about money. It's all about who has the money and controlling the money. Is America as a country prepared to upset all of its richest people? I don't know. Is it? Is it prepared to upset all of its richest people to appease bloodthirsty brokies who don't even care about justice? They just want the drama. Another question, because I would argue that the murders that happen every day on the street are very interesting, but no one cares about that. MS-13 and all this shit, no one really cares about that. But this Epstein list they really care about. They want justice, sure, but it's a drama. It's interesting. They want to find out. They're curious. And I'm asking you, as a professional, you're in charge of a country. Your primary objective is to keep your oligarchy happy, to keep the wealth inside of your nation, and to make them obey you when it comes to sanctions and such other things, and to ensure that the US dollar becomes and stays the predominant currency globally. There's a bunch of bloodthirsty brokies on the internet who barely pay taxes who want to go through a list. Who are you going to prioritize? Who do you care about? I'm not saying it's fair. But anyone who believes the legal systems are fair is a dumbass anyway, because the legal system's never been fair. There's always been a who are you involved in all legal cases. So when you talk about the Epstein things, I sit and think it's all money orientated. Because broke people like to think that rich people should be held accountable like broke people. And that's a great idea. But guess what? They're not. They're not. Rich people have a different capability to fight against legal cases than a broke person. They can have better lawyers. They have better media spin. They have PR. They have news outlets. I'm not talking about myself because I'm not rich like these people. These people own news networks. They can affect public sentiment, which affects a jury, which affects their case. This is the bottom line of it. At the top level, at the top echelon of fame and money, legal cases aren't even about law. They're just a circus. If they pick you up, it's only deliberately to attack your image. It's not even about law at that point, like Trump. It was only to attack his image. With me, it was to attack my image. They didn't give a shit they got a conviction. They got a shit about keeping me in a country where I couldn't work, trying to take away all my money, and slandering me every day on the news. That's all they wanted to do.
Very well said there, and I tell you, this has got to be one of his great, one of the great conversations ever had with Andrew Tate. Wonderful, wonderful idea in that. And here again, he proves the point that the reason why they wanted to lock him up in Romania, they wanted to put charges on him in Romania, was to slander Andrew Tate. They thought it would slow him down. The reason why they, to be fair, put charges on Donald Trump while he was running for president, while he was campaigning for president, is the fact they wanted to slander him so that he could lose the election. Not to say that he was innocent. The only thing he was guilty of was, propositioning a prostitute at the wrong time and lying about it on his taxes, so to speak. I'm not exactly knowing of his exact charge, but I think that's the way it went there. But it was all a game to be played so that Democrats could smear Donald's name so that hopefully he wouldn't get reelected, but it didn't work. It did not work, and the 45th president became the 47th president. And Andrew saw the signs already because he's going through the same thing. They did not want his influence to rise to the lofty heights it has, so therefore, wrap up smear, do what you need to do, prosecute him where you need to prosecute him, drag his name through the mud as much as you can on any outlet or any through any media possible in order to stop his influence. The only problem is they didn't. Same as Donald. They didn't stop that influence. And he's here today, still surviving, and is only making his name even bigger. Now, we have another prosecution in Florida through the Attorney General's office. They're gonna think of a crime and hope it sticks. But if they think that that is going to stop the influence of Andrew Tate, that's going to be a bigger problem in and of itself. Let's continue.
So you have to analyze these things as a professional and understand you're talking about the most powerful people in the world on this list, perhaps. And you're asking, why is the list not come out? I would argue that the most powerful people in the world, if they have half a brain, are talking to Cash and Pam and saying, look, maybe this is on, maybe I'm on that list, maybe I did something bad, but also look at all the good I've done, this. You want to appease a few Twitter autists, but it's going to have this consequence, that consequence, that consequence, that consequence, that consequence. And then as a rational adult, there's rational conversations to have. And rational conversations are about subjectivity and compromise. It's not about sitting and saying, that's the law, so that's what we're going to do, da-da-da. And that's what we all like to believe, that the law is the law, and we all stick to the law. Doesn't work that way.
You know, I wonder how many people know. For example, think about the Epstein files. How many people you think have seen it? How many know that are working for the government? What do you think that number is? 50? 100? Is it 20? Is it 18?
Or less.
Or is it 300? How many is it?
But here's another thing. Here's another fear I would have if I was Cash. And I'm not in his position. But here's a fear I would have if I was Cash. I would understand there's a hostile media environment towards my president. I would understand that people lie by omission. As we discussed earlier, when you call 100 girls, you only choose one. When you leave out a huge part of the story, you are lying. But you're telling the truth about part of the story, but you're lying by omission. Perhaps they're looking at these files saying, there's 400 names on here, but there's these 2 names that's going to hurt us. Mm-hmm. And the media is going to ignore 398 names. Yeah. And they're going to only pick up these 2 names. And they're going to wreck us with these 2 names and ignore all the names on their side. Is this worth it to appease Twitter autists? Because we're now going to have a lying by omission attack that we're going to be dealing with for the rest of human time. Also, we have no idea what's in these Epstein files. I don't know. Nobody knows. Is it proof of crimes? Is it proof of trafficking? Is it sexual details? Or is it just a flight log? I don't know. So perhaps you could have someone dead to rights fucking children on their side, and you could just have one person on a flight log on our side. And the person who did the genuine crime will be ignored, lied by omission, and they'll just mention the one guy who caught a flight once. This is a consideration as professionals. You have to sit down and go, how can our enemy, it's chess. I'm going to make this move to attack my enemy. How can he attack me after the move has been made? And I'm telling you that Pam and Cash, as professionals, are sitting there going, they're going to ignore 99.8% of this, and they're going to take that 0.2%, and they're going to wreck us with it. We're going to be in Senate hearings. We're going to be hearing about it on the news. It's going to affect the next election. They're going to be talking about it all over the... It gets messy now. And who are you trying to appease? You're trying to appease drama merchants. Because a lot of people online who pretend to care about law and order are drama merchants. All the people who were involved in my case, I am so offended by human trafficking, Andrew Tate, that I've done nothing wrong. So you're just a drama merchant. You're not offended by anything, because it's not real. You're just a drama merchant who wants to pretend they're matter with their shit little opinion and be involved in drama because no one gives a fuck about you when you walk down the street and you want to be a big guy on Twitter. So you want to pretend you matter. So you have to analyze these things carefully. I would argue, if I had to come to the bottom of it, we talked about the money aspect, but I would also argue there is an aspect there where the lying by omission attack, it opens them up to a massive attack vector. And they have to consider this attack vector is going to be very hard to dispute for a very long time. And they're going to ignore 99% of this file and attack us with the 1%. Sometimes trying to do the good thing, doing the right thing. The mob, the peasants, the mob are not the good guys. Gaddafi did great for his people. What did they do to him? What did they do to him? They chopped him to pieces and sodomized him. Trying to appease the mob doesn't always work like you think it does. Not easy.
Yeah, I mean, it's a point being made. The question becomes, do you think the names are going to be leaked? At this point, I don't think it is.
I don't think so. And going off of what you said, Andrew, my thing is, and we're not those, the people that are just like, I just want, My thing is the young, because we don't know the ages, but there was young children, and you guys have children, me and Adam don't, young children that were flown there, that were potentially raped, and you know what? That's a big-ass island. Murdered, killed, because these people have no homes there, nobody. We can just get rid of them, probably cremated over there, and now those people are just walking around, and I get it, bro, because as a Christian, God is going to pay them back.
You know what's interesting? This ties back into something we were talking about earlier with polygamy and me having multiple women and these things. And this is an interesting thought experiment I want us all to undertake here, because I would argue that the reason we have such a problem with sexual perversion amongst our elite class in the West is because monogamy is being pushed to the front where it's unnatural to a degree for certain men. Not all men, but certain men are not interested in monogamy, and it's being pushed to the front, and people are getting to a certain level of wealth and power, and they're stuck with one wife who then perhaps don't even get along with anymore, and they're only together for a show marriage, and they don't even enjoy each other's company anymore, and they're sexually repressed, and the only place they can go to do anything sexual without getting exposed is this island. And before you know it, they end up doing there and doing more and more depraved things. You know why you don't see Russians on that island? Rich Russians? Because rich Russians are allowed 10 girlfriends. So they have their wife, and they have their play toys, and they're fine. Because that's the masculine imperative at a certain level, a certain echelon of wealth and power and status. So if you're a man who's prepared to have a bunch of women, and you have your women, you're happy enough. But if you're a man who's stuck with a woman and you don't even get along with each other, and it's a show marriage, and you have to be together, and you argue all the time, and you're sexually repressed, and you're being promised in secret that you can go to an island and finally be pleasured and satisfied, no one's ever going to find out, that's how you end up on the island. So this whole monogamy garbage that's being pushed by the West, especially amongst our elites, is the reason we have the biggest problem with pedophilia, and they don't have this problem in South America because they all have girlfriends. They don't have this problem in Russia because they all have girlfriends. The Thai elites don't have this problem. They all have girlfriends. But here in the West, we're saying, nope, you just stick with your wife, only her, be happy with her. Well, what happens if you don't get along anymore? What happens if you don't fuck anymore ever? What happens if you're not enjoying it? And you're hearing all these stories from all these people having a great time. That's why we have a perversion problem, because we're suppressing men's natural inclination to sexually mate with women who are not the one they're married to. That is actually the root of a lot of pedophilia. People say I am the problem with the West and that I'm destroying Western society. I would argue, and I'm good at that actually at a certain echelon, monogamy causes more problems than it solves.
Wonderful, wonderful. I mean, it's a tour de force by Andrew Tate tonight. It really is. He's touching on so many subjects. And he's right there. It's one of the key touchstones of Western society, and that is of monogamy. And the fact that it is part of society, and why indeed an Epstein Island was so very necessary, especially for the rich, because it allowed them to escape their reality, escape their obligations of marriage in order to satisfy themselves sexually. Again, an Epstein Island wouldn't be found in some parts of Europe, not all, but maybe France and a few other European states, where having an affair or having a mistress is not out of the question. In South America, same thing. In Eastern Europe, definitely the same thing. In Asia, totally the same thing. In Africa, definitely the same thing, where polygamy is totally excused. In the rest of the world, they don't have these sort of issues. But in a place like the United States and places in Western Europe, this is a huge problem. This is a huge problem that upsets the institution of marriage. And we're asking ourselves, is there a middle way? I think there are many people who have found the middle way, and that is through such things as the lifestyle. You'd have to look that up. But it's only open to a certain amount of people. A lot of people, mainly women, are not open to that idea. Very, very much not open to that idea. And that leaves the majority of men in the West scratching their heads as to find a solution, and therefore they have to have affairs. That means they have to have escorts, and therefore they're risking their fortunes in the institution of marriage, because Lord knows a woman can, drop marriage at the drop of a hat simply because of infidelity. And they can lose their fortunes because of it. So men are left, staying in unhappy marriages. And it is a shame, and it is the sort of thing that the West needs to look at intently for it to change its ways, because, again, I think the rest of the world sees that there is a way forward, but it's only the West who are left dragging, kicking, and screaming, and not listening to the truth. Let's continue. Oh, let's leave it there. Let's leave it there. I'll stop there for a second. Let's move on, quite simply because again, we're running against the clock here. We're getting to the end of the interview with Andrew Tate. Thank you very much for joining me on Talk Live on IJ and YouTube. Like, subscribe, comment on the road to 1,000 subscribers. Still finishing up with Andrew Tate. Let's hear his take on, indeed, his last take on the war in the Ukraine, and what he feels about Zelensky and the Zelensky / Trump confrontation, which again set the world alight only a week ago. Let's continue. I'll rewind it back here.
Rob, can you pull up the clip with the president, actually Zelensky and the president together? That is a clip that doesn't get, it just, I can watch it so many times. Watching this guy's audacity to feel comfortable. Just go to my Twitter account, Rob. You're going to have a long time finding it. Just go to my Twitter account and go lower, you'll see the video. This is Zelensky in a White House, sitting next to J.D. Vance. Do the first one. Lower, not that one. That's about his outfit. Go one lower, right there. I want to get your reaction on this. This is Zelensky sitting there, talking to the president. And by the way, some people are saying that he slipped up a word and he cursed at J.D. Vance.
Called him a bitch. A bitch. In Ukraine,
Right.
call him a bitch.
Play this clip, Rob. Go for it.
Talking about the kind of diplomacy that's going to end the destruction of your country.
Yes, but if you are not strong...
Mr. President, with respect, I think it's disrespectful for you to come to the Oval Office and try to litigate this in front of the American media. Right now, you guys are going around and forcing conscripts to the front lines because you have manpower problems. You should be thanking the President for trying to bring an end to this conflict.
Have you ever been to Ukraine that you say what problems we have?
I have been to.
Come once.
I've actually watched and seen the stories, and I know what happened.
That's a bit of an embarrassing part there by Mr. Vance. I have watched and seen the stories. Come a bit simpish. But anyways, we'll let that be. We'll let it be. Let's go.
What happens is you bring them on a propaganda tour, Mr. President. Do you disagree that you've had problems? Bringing people into your military? And do you think that it's respectful to come to the Oval Office of the United States of America and attack the administration that is trying to prevent the destruction of your country?
A lot of questions. Let's start from the beginning.
Sure.
First of all, during the war, everybody has problems. Even you, but you have nice ocean and don't feel now, but you will feel it in the future. God bless.
You don't know that.
God bless. God bless. You will not have war.
Don't tell us what we're going to feel. We're trying to solve a problem. Don't tell us what we're going to feel.
I'm not telling you.
Because you're in no position to dictate that. Remember this. You're in no position to dictate what we're going to feel. We're going to feel very good.
You will feel influence.
We're going to feel very good and very strong.
You will feel influence.
You're right now not in a very good position. You've allowed yourself to be in a very bad position, and he happens to be right about it.
From the very beginning of the war.
You're not in a good position. You don't have the cards right now. With us, you start having cards. But right now, you don't. Yeah, you're playing cards. You're playing cards. You're gambling with the lives of millions of people. You're gambling with World War III. You're gambling with World War III. And what you're doing is very disrespectful to the country, this country. It's back to you. Far more than a lot of people said they should.
Look at his leaning in.
He wants to hit that.
A lot of times.
No, in this
Even
entire
today,
meeting, you said thank
even
you.
today.
You went to Pennsylvania and campaigned for the opposition in October. Offer some words of appreciation for the United States of America and the president who's trying to save your country.
Oh, thoughts?
I have to be careful what I say about this because I returned to the Ukrainian border on the 23rd of March, but obviously, truthfully, I'm quite outraged. The fact that even at the beginning of the clip, he had his arms crossed, which is the terrible body language. You notice at the beginning, he has his arm crossed.
Yeah.
Very petulant. I don't know where he gets this confidence from. I'm not sure if he just bought into his own Kool-Aid. I would argue that he had assurances from the deep state that Trump would never win. I feel like, if I had to analyze, he feels betrayed. I feel like he said, well, the Americans promised they're going to help me. Now they've changed their minds. They promised me. They put me in this position. That's why he's probably secretly angry at America, no matter how much we give him. But, I mean, that was obviously a PR disaster from him. I am truthfully more outraged by the instant European tour that they threw together for him. And they dragged the leaders of every single European country together to treat him like a hero and run him all over the place. That is another spit in the face of President Trump. I would like to think that Trump thinks the same as me, that if you add up the fact that Europe is now buddying up with people who disrespect him to his face, not allowing free speech, I mean, what do we even have in common anymore with our European allies, supposedly? The fact that Keir Starmer left the White House, flew home, and instantly met Zelensky is disgusting.
Pull up that clip, Rob. And when he's talking about conscription, you guys know what they're doing there, right? Yep. There's videos, Andrew and Pat. I send them to Rob. They're literally pulling up in vans. Guys walking his dog, and they're grabbing him and throwing him in a van and bringing him into the front lines to die. Is that not dictatorship as a leader?
What's this video here?
Like, look at this guy's walking his dog. There's volume. They run up on this guy. They snatch his ass. They leave the dog. They throw him in there, and they literally put him in the front lines to die. This is what J.D. Vance was talking about. He's like, he's like, you're losing this war. And the soldiers, Andrew, don't want to fight. They're tired. They're done. They know they're going to freaking lose. So they grab the dude and they put him in the van, and he's done. He's in the front lines, and he dies. Period.
We have to argue if Zelensky's trying to save himself, because I think one of the biggest mistakes he made there is I think only America could have kept him alive when this is all over. Mm-hmm. He's not going to be safe in Ukraine. I don't think you can let that many of your own people die without having a disgruntled member of the population or an opposing political force deal with you. Europe can't keep you safe from Russia. That's been proven many times. I think there was a guy in Germany who got assassinated by the FSB relatively recently. They put a bullet in his head, and then he did 3 years in German jail. He had a life sentence, did 3 years before Putin did him in a prisoner swap. I think that was 2021. So Europe can't save you. We know London can't because you get a plutonium sandwich. So only America could have kept him alive when this is all over. So pissing Trump off is an act of desperation and petulance, which he's going to truly regret in the end when this war ends, because I don't know how nice Trump is. I don't know if he's going to sit with Putin and say Zelensky's off limits, because Putin's going to say, is he a target? And if Trump says, I don't care, then he has problems all around the globe. Where's he going to go? Where's he going to...
Good. Listen, Andrew Tate, it's full of gems tonight. And I've been talking about this on Talk Live for a while. And it's been stated on Fresh and Fit for a while. Shout out to Myron. Zelensky was really counting on the United States to carry on this war. They really, really were. Especially the Biden administration. I think if Kamala Harris was chosen to be president of the United States, that war would have raged on for years and years and years. But as stated here on Talk Live, when Trump went into office, the war was going to end. The war would end in the Ukraine, allowing Russia to take the Donbass region for themselves, and allowing the Ukraine to exist in its current state without the Donbass region. They would have to redraw the lines of the Ukraine, unfortunately, because, again, they weren't going to be backed by the Americans anymore. And I think that's exactly what Zelensky was so peed off when he went to the White House last week. He went to the United States with open hands, asking for more aid to continue a war that were indeed killing many of the Ukraine citizens, or allowing women to swan it up in Western climes because they weren't to fight in the war. Now again, that is all well and good, but it was a war that was going on for way too long. Russia proved this point. They got the Donbass region, and they weren't going to give it up. And Zelensky was asking for Trump and Vance to give him the financial means to keep fighting this war. But Trump said no mas. Trump said no more. Trump said niet. And he is setting about things where he's literally telling the Ukraine, this war will end this year. You will take what you have and you will move on. You will take what you have and move on. And, you know, with Trump being, again, such good friends with Putin, it's going to happen. It's going to happen. And it is that's the reason why you got the huge outburst from Zelensky last week, because he realized that his time at the gravy train was over. He knew that Europe can only help so much. His big backer for any war had to be the United States. And since that gravy train ended upon Trump's inauguration, you got the outburst that you did. And the proxy war that was fought for the last few years, killing thousands upon thousands of lives, men, women, and children in Ukraine, was about to end. Now, again, do I have a dog in the fight? No, I think there are many, as shown here on Talk Live over the years, there are many different wars happening many times around the world. But the one war that we tend to focus in on is the one in Ukraine. And I think that focus should end. I think that, American money is best served at home or in many other countries in which, they are in need of aid. But the war in the Ukraine should end, and no more bloodshed should be found in said region. But Zelensky is can he be considered a warmonger? Potentially, but it's done in the guise of protecting his people. But I think there is no quarrel with Russia now that they have what they want. Let's continue.
Hide from the Russians.
Did you hear President Trump and Kier, what he said about Kier? Have you seen the audio?
It was good, right?
Rob, can you pull up that clip? It's interesting. I'm trying to see if Trump is playing diplomacy here.
Yeah, Trump said good things about Kier.
Yeah, he did. If you can play this clip, Rob.
No, we have an ad.
Okay, so then go to...
Well, I think, before we play, I think I know what you're going to say, and I think I know the answer as well. I think I'm guessing. But we'll see.
Can you skip or you can't?
I can't skip. It's Daily Mail, so we're pulling straight from their website.
Okay.
5 seconds.
15, but yeah, close.
Okay.
Who can count?
There's another clip as well where just now, I think it happened today, where Kira's up there speaking with Nigel Farage there. This just happened today, by the way. Today. About Zelensky and Trump.
The Labour government.
I do.
Raise the audio up.
Already.
Go back a little bit.
He's come up to see me twice. I have a call. He and I have a call over the next 24 hours. No, I get along with him well. I like him a lot. He's liberal, which is a little bit different for me. But I think he's a very good person. I think he's done a very good job thus far. He's very good with the job. But he's represented his country in terms of his philosophy. I may not agree with his philosophy, but I have a very good relationship with him. I've seen him twice. Had dinner with him in Trump Tower, as you probably know.
He said he had dinner with him at Trump Tower. He said likes him. He goes, he's a liberal.
He says that about a lot of people. He says that about Putin. He says that about Xi. He says he's got a relationship with all these guys. That's his approach. He wants to keep it safe. Is this the clip of him saying the words?
Yes.
Go ahead and play it, Ron.
I have been to. I've actually watched and seen the stories, and I know what happens is you bring them on a propaganda tour. I've actually watched and seen the stories, and I know what happens is you bring them on a propaganda tour, Mr. I have been.
Do you have the clip of his ambassador, not ambassador, the diplomat
the
that's
girl.
there, and she's just shaking her head like
she knows what's happening.
What are you doing, right? The way he was handling it. But does this guy feel protected? Was he instigated? Did people challenge him to do so? This is
if I had to analyze, and once again I'm guessing, but I can come up with a conclusion. I can guess why I think this happened.
Look at this, shaking her head.
I want to see fire. Because we get a ceasefire faster than...
Yeah, go for it.
Right. So, firstly, the reason I think Trump's saying good things about Kier is because Kier probably instantly agreed to everything Trump wants. I think Trump's a carrot and stick guy. I think if you turn up and in private he says we're going to do X, Y, and Z, and you go, okay, sir.
Now, here's the one thing. This is the one part of the segment. It comes at the end of the night, I know. But it's the one thing that I object to with regards to what Andrew Tate had to say. 99% of the things that Andrew Tate had to say, I'm in total agreement with. But this one portion, this one partition of tonight's show is where I do have an disagreement, slight disagreement. I'll let it play out.
Do X, Y, and Z, then you're a great guy. I can't imagine Keir sat down and argued with him or disagreed with him about anything important. He would have got that answer. So I think that basically Keir bent over and America's going to get the better end of the deal. So for that reason, he gets praise, because praise from Trump is good for your poll figures anywhere, any party, anywhere around the world. It's a good thing. Even liberals like you more if Trump likes you. That's how powerful he is. So what that means is that in their private exchange, Keir gave Trump everything he wants. That's what I believe. As regards to Zelensky, I would argue that he was told by European elites that Trump is against this war and Trump is talking to Putin, and they probably told him that Trump is a bully and Trump likes to bully people, and you have to look strong in front of Trump. Don't be afraid of him. If you stand up to a bully, it puts them in their place, and you're the leader of a country now at war, and you have to show them that you're a strong leader. If you add in second language frustration and incompetence, you get a scenario like the one we just saw. So I think Zelensky was hyped up and told to stand up to a bully. You add in the fact he's speaking in a second language and doesn't truly understand English. You add in the fact he's nervous and incompetent. You add in the fact he's likely a drug addict. And you have the train crash we just saw there. That's what I think happened.
Where are you getting the drug addict component?
I have to go back to Romania on March 23rd, and the Ukrainians operate heavily inside of Romania. I don't want to catch a bullet. If I do catch it, it's them. But I think everybody knows he's a cocaine addict.
Really?
Look at Zelensky. Yeah, there was clips about him on this as well.
He's geeking out all the time.
Yeah,
he's heavily cocaine
addicted.
addicted.
There was clips about him.
I mean, it's easy to be cocaine addicted. You're hiding in a bunker. There's a contingent of your own country who want you dead. The Russians want you dead. Now the Americans want you dead. The Europeans are promising you things, but the Europeans are femme-centric. The Europeans are run by women. And when I say run by women, I get this confused often. I often say that this is femininity that is destroying it. Europe is run by femininity. And when I say that, they'll say, Keir's not a woman. No, but he's not a man, is he? When I'm talking about women, I'm talking about the female mindset versus the masculine mindset. And feminism and the European state, they always say, we don't hate men. Look, Keir's a man, but he's not masculine. They hate men who act masculine. Yeah. They like the men who act like girls because they're eunuchs. They like the eunuchs and the girls. They don't like the real masculine men. Yeah. And there's not...
You couldn't have said it better myself. Western Europe is indeed very emasculated. A very emasculated state. Canada, to a certain extent, is very emasculated. Not so much our premier of this province, but for the most part, yeah. Like Trudeau, very, very emasculated. Very emasculated. That's why I think so many men disagreed with Trudeau. Because he was a soy boy. Trudeau was very, very much a soy boy. But in a certain respect, I agree with Trudeau. I'm glad to see him go, but in this respect that is coming up, I am on Trudeau's side. Yes, I am. Even though he's a soy boy. Very much emasculated. Western Europe, Canada, very emasculated places. But I'll let it continue. Thank you very much for joining me on Talk Live. Thank you very much. Thank you very, very much.
A single leader in Europe, which is a masculine man. Europe is a feminine continent. Yes. And the problem with femininity as a whole is that as their emotions change, their obligations change. It's the masculine imperative to make a promise and make a pact. And even if your emotions change, you stick to your word. That is masculine. Female is, I love you so much right now, I'll never do everything for you, I'll die for you because I love you. As soon as she stops loving you, everything's out the window, nothing matters, her words don't matter, all that matters are her feelings.
But remember, yeah, a woman's love is indeed conditional. That's another female component. That is femininity in and of itself. Women are fantastic survivors. Why? Because when the wind blows, their allegiances change. See World War II. Let's continue.
The problem that Zelensky has now is his allies are women, which means right now they feel like helping him, which means they'll make him a whole bunch of promises. They mean what they say. They're not lying. They mean it right now. But when their feelings change, everything changes. Before you know it, he's in an apartment in Berlin, hiding from the FSB. He's going to catch a bullet, and he knows it. And that's why he's under pressure. That's why he's reacting like he did. Only the Americans could have negotiated and bargained for his safety.
Wait, you're saying Macron is not masculine? I just want to put,
Yeah.
But I think we should get Candace on here and confirm if he is married to his.
She's getting close.
She's getting close. She's doing great.
She's doing great.
It's amazing. But this is very important that we
Brigitte Macron.
Well, let's understand this, right? Let's understand this. Europe is femme-centric, run by women. The men are effectively women. There is no masculine man inside of the entire European elite. Europe is women. Do you know what is a strong patriarchy with a masculine influence? America. Do you know another one? Russia. If America and Russia ally against Europe, they are crushed economically, energetically, militarily. They are crushed completely. And they're sitting there like petulant females, refusing to accept the reality that there's two strong men on either side that are tired of their shit, and it's time to shut up and listen. So we're going to see if Europe comes to its...
And you can see that in the NATO agreement. Trump is very, very much going against Europe's involvement in NATO because they do very little. And the United States are shouldering a lot of the responsibility of protecting the Western world. And, Trump is starting to, rise up and really criticize Europe's involvement in NATO, even Canada's involvement in NATO to a certain extent, because again, we give little to nothing with regards to our military spending is some of the lowest in the Western world. So it is Trump is pushing back, and a lot of European powers, including Canada, are going against it. But in one way, I like what Trump is doing, and in another way, you'll find out in a minute, I don't. Let's continue.
To its senses and gets lockstep in line with Trump's imperatives. I would argue that Keir's done exactly that. Keir sat down in private when he didn't have to act like a tough guy, because he wants to be a tough guy. Because you know that woman who gets in your face, hit me. That's all them. They're all little girls.
But Keir's a gooner, so give him a little slack.
Soy face, run his mouth publicly, said Trump's bad before the election publicly. Then he sits down with Trump privately. We don't know what's said. Trump leaves and goes, yeah, I like Keir. He's a good guy. I guarantee you it's because Keir's like, sorry, Mr. Trump, what should I sign? Sorry, Mr. Trump. Sign whatever Trump wanted. Otherwise, he wouldn't have got that accolade from Trump himself. And all of these people are going to end up bending over to Trump in the end.
And the strongest leader of these European countries is actually a woman, Giorgia Meloni in Italy.
It's incredible. That's why Europe's collapsing, because there's no masculine imperative.
Well, at least
masculine is the defenders.
At least Canada has a real man like Justin Trudeau. I mean,
wasn't he voted out? Why is he still on TV?
I don't know.
Why is he still around? Wasn't he gone? I don't know if he's gone.
They're waiting on a election.
Again, I don't know the ins and outs of the economics, but when Trump imposed tariffs on Canada and Mexico, and they instantly folded and did whatever he wanted behind the scenes to get the tariffs removed, absolute gangster.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I can't remember the name of the conservative leader of Canada, Pierre, whatever. But when all these people start trying to talk tough about Canada and all this crap, you guys need to, they really secretly know the deal, because if they really piss Trump off, they're going to get hit with these tariffs and get wrecked. So
now, this is where I have an objection to what Andrew Tate has to say, because he really doesn't understand the economics of what's going on here, in that in order for America to run, it needs Canada. It needs Canada. That's why they're calling it that's why saber rattling calling it the 51st state, because at the end of the day, it's Canada's contributions that are keeping American running the way it is, especially with lumber, especially with hydro, especially with oil. Without Canadian oil, America doesn't run. It doesn't run to the same effect it does right now. This is where I have a little bit of an objection to what Andrew Tate has to say. Because indeed, like they said, for the first time, I think in his prime ministership, Justin Trudeau is talking tough. He's actually talking tough instead of bending to the will of the pharmaceutical companies, bending to the will of LGBTQ, bending to the will of feminists, bend. He's always there's a song, there's a Jamaican song in that. He's always bend. Except now, when he's just about to leave, he finally finds a backbone and talks tough about Trump and said, if you're going to hit me with tariffs, I'm going to hit you back with tariffs. because he can. Because he realized he's running a trade surplus against the United States. So he has something that to which he can shoot back at Trump. And he's getting a little support from Europe as well. So he can talk tough. So I disagree with what Andrew Tate has to say on that in that instance, that we're going to get wrecked with tariffs because we're operating the trade surplus, not the United States. That's what's pissing Donald Trump off. Let's continue.
In public, what did I say earlier that a billionaire can lie? In public, they stand up. Canada will never be the 51st state. We're proud Canadians. We're going to fight against them. Da-da-da. Next day, Trump takes the tariffs off. Why? Is it because of the little stupid speech you made on Canadian TV that no one watches? Or is it because you called Trump and said, hi, Mr. Trump, what do you want me to do, Mr. Trump? Okay, I'll fix it, Mr. Trump. Fix the border, Mr. Trump. Sorry, Mr. Trump. Billionaires can lie. That's what they do. They stand up and say one thing, and they secretly do another. That's our politics as a whole, all in Europe, all these countries. Every single time you see a leader talk bad about Trump, if they're not currently getting wrecked, I guarantee you in private, they're licking his ass. Would you? Every single one of them. Guaranteed. Any one of them who's talking bad about Trump in public and in private is fucked, and they know it. So they just want to be the tough guy on TV, and the second the phone call's private, like Keir, he's like, I like Keir. Keir's all right. He's liberal, but he's all right. I like his vision. Of course you do. He signed the fucking contract. Of course you bent over. Of course you do. Fucking.
But again, to be fair, Andrew, as much as I like you, I think you're a genius and you're a modern day hero. You got that one wrong. That's slightly wrong in the sense of, indeed, I have not heard of a good word Trump has put forth towards the Canadian government, the Canadian premiers of each province, nor the Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. Not till now, because he's not got what he wanted. So, going with Andrew Tate's logic. So let's leave it there, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much to PBD podcast, Peter Bet David podcast. Excellent interview with Andrew Tate, doing wonderful things YouTube streets. Please subscribe to him. I have myself on my personal channel. I listen to him from time to time. He has great debates, great takes on politics, on sociology, on the state of men in the world, the state of the world, period. And he has great guests such as Andrew Tate on there. So please like and subscribe to PBD Podcast, and especially Valuetainment. He does a wonderful thing. He has Saucecast here as well. He does a lot of male empowerment viewing as well, and that I think is fantastic. So shout out to King Onan. Hope all is well in Dallas, my friend. But let's get it back to myself, and let's end the show right here. Andrew Tate, ladies and gentlemen, is a force of nature. He is a man. He's a man of the times. He cannot be stopped. And if they try to stop him, we know why. He is part of the zeitgeist that a lot of people like Ben Shapiro, like David Portnoy, like Bognino, like many, like Megyn Kelly, like Scott Hawley, a lot of these conservative voices can't stand here because they do not shine as bright as an Andrew Tate, especially on many of these things. He is a man who has taken over the mantle of a Kevin Samuels and brought to a world stage. He really, really has. And his nuanced views on many a world issue are something to behold. And it is hoped that more people give Andrew Tate a chance in terms of what he has to say. Because, again, he has a lot to say, and a lot of what he has to say makes sense. Not only men understand this, and young men especially understand this, but I think it's through Andrew Tate's help that we got that Donald Trump was elected into office. I really and truly think so. And I think that is going to be a wave of masculinity that is going to be showering Western Europe right now, even though Europe is basically feminized, especially Western Europe is basically feminized. Not so much Eastern Europe, but definitely Western Europe is basically feminized, and is is falling apart at the seams. And can I believe that? Yeah, I can believe that to a certain extent. It begs what remains to be seen, but yeah, I think it is a falling continent, and they need the help of Canada right now to keep it together. They even are, as I've said here on Talk Live, they're even thinking of including Canada in the European Union. There has to be a reason for that, because they know it's a dying state. So they need all the help they can get, especially internally, especially with their terrorism, especially with their economies. They need all the help, the alliances, the trade deals they can get, and if it comes from Canada, so be it. But again, getting back to Andrew Tate, it's a shame that he has to go through this new persecution that is happening in the United States by the Attorney General. And tomorrow night, a Friday night show, we will go to part 3 of Andrew Tate in the USA, where we will be showing a clip of him with the one and only Candace Owens, a short interview regarding the new charges being trumped up, new charges that are pending against Andrew Tate for simply existing, for simply being who he is, and standing up and sticking up for men. Again, feminized states such as the one in which Governor DeSantis is a leader. They're trying to lock him up because they are so afraid of the influence he has, of the tornado of good speech that he gives. And it's a shame that we are here listening to these charges. So we're going to go into that, and also we're going to have a little bit of a take from the one and only Myron from Fresh and Fit. All that going down tomorrow. Final show tomorrow, part 3 of Andrew Tate in the USA. Our final part, in which we speak to the charges that are yet to be laid against them, but in hopes that they are by the Attorney General of Florida and the Governor of Florida, and also the takes from the one and only Myron Gaines and the interview from Candace Owens. So please come back for one more day tomorrow night. We're going to get it done. We're going to get it done live. So thank you very much for joining me in Talk Live on IG and YouTube. Like, subscribe, comment. On the road to 1,000 subscribers again. And soon, I will say this myself, very, very, very soon, we're going to get ourselves some new equipment in here, already sourced out, already ready to be ready, and soon going to be employed here on Talk Live. So get ready for that in the next days and months to come. Thank you very much for joining me on Talk Live on IG, YouTube. Like, subscribe, comment on the road to 1,000 subscribers. We're going to say goodnight from tomorrow, and we'll be back tomorrow night with part 3 of Andrew Tate in the USA. Good night from Toronto on IG. And thank you very much for joining me on Talk Live here on IG and YouTube. On YouTube, we'll be back tomorrow night to discuss Andrew Tate in the USA, part 3, his persecution and the reaction to said persecution and prosecution. Alleged prosecution by the Attorney General of Florida and his soy boy buddy, that is Governor DeSantis. No wonder he lost the gun shit against Trump. It's true. So look forward to that tomorrow night.